Hi guys, this is the monthly prediction for all the rising and moon signs. And this month of October is actually a very special month because we have the eclipses happening on the 25th. So you're going to want to listen to this because this month is going to mark the second half of the eclipses that began back in April, May. So this is going to be the continuation, but really the opposite. So the second half of the year, all the way until June, is going to bring to us this karmic, the karmic journey that began back in December is going to begin to unfold and come to a full circle after this eclipse. So within the next 6 months after the eclipse. So this is a big month. So we've been waiting for this. So let's get started with all the predictions. But before, let's take a look at all the changes that are going to also happen in the month of October. So on the 2nd, finally, Mercury goes direct. It will no longer be in retrograde and is going to go direct in the sign of Virgo. So all the difficulties that we have been experiencing, especially for Pisces and Virgo rising and moons and Gemini and Sagittarius, all of these things are now going to make sense. Then October 16, Mars enters Gemini, where it will go retrograde back into Taurus. And remember, we are talking about your Vedic chart here, so make sure that that's what you're looking at when you're listening to these readings. Then on October 17th, Sun will enter Libra, sidereal Libra. It'll leave Virgo where it's sitting with Mercury and it'll enter Libra. Then on the 18th, Venus will join Sun in the sign of Libra. On the 23rd, Saturn goes direct. So we've had Saturn retrograde in Capricorn since about July. So we've been experiencing some kind of last minute sort of lessons around whatever area Capricorn is in your Vedic chart. Now Capricorn will go direct and move forward and change signs in January. Then Mercury will enter Libra on the 26th, the day after the eclipses. And the eclipse, I believe is a solar eclipse. And let me verify, give me 1 second. We'll be experiencing a partial solar eclipse with the sun being in Libra, Venus being in Libra already, and Mercury entering the sign of Libra the day after the eclipse. And as the eclipse approaches, I will do another video telling you guys exactly what you should be expecting. But just to go briefly over the things that I recommend personally to do during the eclipse and after the eclipse. This is actually going to be the darkest night of the year because during the eclipse in Vedic astrology, this is called, I don't want to butcher this, so give me 1 second. Right before the eclipse happens on the 25th, on the 24th, it is the beginning of Diwali night. And this in Hindu cultures is a festival where you are meant to sort of give praise and worship God Ganesh and Goddess Lakshmi in order to remove obstacles, remove shadows, remove any evils in our lives and bring to us abundance and happiness and luxuries into our lives. So at this will take place at the same time as the eclipses. It is the darkest night of the year. So it is a very important time for us to worship not only our higher power, but also worship and give thanks to what we have reached, where we are right now, and so that we can welcome in what's meant to come to us. Some things that I personally observe during any eclipse is I like to remain indoors because it will be such a dark night. I highly recommend turning on and lighting candles, ghee candles, for the gods and goddesses that you associate in your life and giving thanks to your ancestors above all. I also personally I like to maintain a vegetarian diet at this time because anything that we eat, like meats and things like that, are very dark in nature. So they're tamasic. So you don't want, during the eclipse, when the Rahu and Ketu are eclipsing the sun and the moon, this is a very tamasic energy. So you don't want to add more of the tamasic energies into your bodies. Also, staying indoors is something that I observe. But as we get closer, I will tell you guys more about the festival and what it entails, and what some things that I personally do or that I recommend doing, or some things that you can research more on. So yes, as the eclipses will take place on October 25th, and it'll be on the day after. Mercury also will enter the eclipse zone with K2, Sun, and Venus, and then Mercury. And that's basically all the transits, all the new changes that are happening in October, which is quite a bit. It's quite a lot. It might not seem like it, but it's a lot. And then on the 30th, October 30th, Mars begins its retrograde from Gemini back into Taurus. So yeah, let's begin with all the rising and moon signs and see the predictions for all. Aries risings and moons. So as you can see right here, the first half of October, you're going to have a stellium right here in your 6th house with Mercury, Venus, Sun, all sitting there. Mercury is going to go direct on the 1st, but you'll still have Sun and Venus there in your 6th house, the beginning of the month. And having so many planets in the 6th house is not the best, because the 6th house is all about enemies, work, routine, discipline. It is a house that brings you struggle and brings you delays in its house. However, it is in its own sign of Virgo, which is not so negative. Once Mercury goes direct there in your 6th house, you're going to feel as if things that you have been dealing with the past few weeks, as it pertains to your work, to your everyday life, even your friendships, your family members, things around your communication, especially at work, that had been delayed, or maybe there was something that could have some misunderstandings. After the 2nd of October, things are going to begin to make sense on why that happened, because you needed to revisit something that after the 2nd, you will now understand and move forward with. But overall, the first half of the month is going to be a little bit difficult, because you still have all of this energy in your 6th house. It's sort of asking you to become very disciplined in what it is that you want, asking you to take a deep look at your everyday life, your routine, your work, the people that you thought are friends but really might not be friends, or how your ego is sort of getting in the way of your everyday life, of your work, and even your health. Like, something around your health can come into question now, where you're feeling as if you need to focus more on it, where you're feeling a lot of pressure at work. This is all going to unfold the first half of the month. Then the second half of the month is going to be better, because you are going to have all those planets in your 7th house. Now, at the same time, even though it's going to feel better, all of this pressure that you felt in your everyday life is now going into your house of partnerships. So with the eclipses on the 25th happening there in your 7th house. So I can feel as if, okay, now I have figured out some kind of routine. I have figured out some kind of balance for myself at work, but now I'm feeling all this pressure in my relationship. So there could be arguments, especially around the eclipses. It's important for you to refrain from just allowing your ego to take action, and instead wait until the eclipses are done, because things really speed up during the eclipses. And for Aries and Libra risings and moons, this is a very pivotal time, because you're sort of learning how to balance relationships and your sense of self-worth and your sense of self. So you are being asked during this karmic time, how much of myself do I give to my relationships without jeopardizing who I am and what I'm trying to become and who I'm trying to become. If you are in a relationship and the relationship is not working, with all of this pressure mounting over your 7th house, it could be that it that it's kind of like the last straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, because the beginning of the eclipses were happening in your first house. Since December, you have been feeling like you want to improve your appearance, like you want to change something about yourself, you want to change something about your appearance, how you portray yourself, how you show up in the world. Others have made you feel stuck, as if they're not allowing you to break away and become this new self that you are yearning to become. You have been feeling pulled back when you're trying to move forward. Now, the second half is all about learning how to balance this need to move forward with your others, with your partnerships, where before maybe they were allowing you to disconnect, but now they're going to try to pull you in even more in order for you to realize who is meant to be in my life, who is working, who can I make this work with, and who can I no longer sustain a relationship with. And the people who you can no longer sustain a relationship with will have to go. And this will be the sort of like the point where you get the courage to move forward. But if you are trying to sustain your relationship, this could be a time where your partner is asking more of you and you're unable to give them what they're asking of you, and you feel sort of at a crossroads, and they can become more demanding, and they can become more even egotistical, or just want more of you, and you are unable to sustain that or give them what they are asking of you. So during the eclipses on the 25th, try to remain as level-headed as you possibly can, because it's not going to be easy. Once you get through it, you will see that allow the things to unfold on their own versus just making any harsh or brash decision on the eclipse night. Allow the karma to unfold by itself. That will be better, because oftentimes when we make those decisions during the eclipses, they happen because the eclipses are kind of like a tunnel, like a black hole, where they push you towards an outcome very fast. But then what you realize is that if you go towards that outcome on that day, once you get what you wanted, once you're on the other side, you will realize, was this really what I wanted? This might not be what I actually wanted. It's not what it seemed before. Versus if you just allow it to unfold organically throughout the months, it'll give you what you wanted in the way that you needed it. And it will be more of, more aligned than if you just went ahead and took that blind impulsive decision on that night, if that makes sense. So yeah, just wait it out, because there's a lot of karmas that are unfolding for Aries risings and moons. If you're single, it could also be a time that in the month of October where you meet a soul, you meet somebody who can feel like a soulmate type of connection. So this could be a night for that, or just like in general, the month of October and moving forward for the next 6 months. But if the relationship is not, or if the relationship is working, it could be that it takes the next step. So like I said, this is very destiny shaping transit. So it can go either way, but it's destiny shaping. So if that person was not destined to be in your life, it'll end. If they were destined to be, then it'll become stronger. Or you can meet somebody that is aligned with you, that feels very fated in essence. Now, that is the biggest thing that is happening for you. I think that after Venus joins in on the stellium in your 7th house, so that will be on the 18th, that after the 18th, you're going to feel a lot better about the month than prior to that. The first half is not going to be as fruitful as the second half. It's also a good time to if you wanted to communicate your feelings, the month of October, especially after the 16th, you're going to have the drive and the willpower to communicate everything that you have been wanting to communicate up until now, especially at work. And you won't have as much, especially at work and with others, and you won't feel as if what you're trying to convey is confusing and they won't understand. things will come out of you a lot more cohesive. Then once Saturn turns direct in your 10th house, this is a really good placement for Saturn in its own house. You can have some kind of career advancement that you have been working hard for the past 2 years. So yeah, it's not a negative time for you. It's just like you need to be very careful. There could be some kind of friendships that you don't see clearly that come to an end the month of October. And at the same time, there could also be some kind of, wait, hold on. There could also be some kind of trip that you've been planning that you take, or maybe you wanted to somehow, somehow maybe you've been thinking about moving far away. That could happen for you. You will have some clarity the month of October. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Taurus. Taurus rising and moons. You currently have Mars in your first house, and it'll move into your second house after the 16th of October. You currently have a whole stellium happening in your 5th house of creativity, romance, and after the second half of October, all these planets will enter your 6th house. So the first half of the month, I think for you, will be a lot more creative and a lot more romantic than the second half. The eclipse is happening in your 6th house on the 25th. So at this time, you are going to feel, well, first we'll talk about Mars. Mars entering your 2nd house, where it will go retrograde back into your 1st house. For the past month or so, since Mars has been in your 1st house, you have been feeling a lot of energy towards accomplishing things in your life, whether that's things that are related to your health, things that are making you feel more active. You've had more energy than usual. Once Mars enters your 2nd house, in the middle of the month on the 16th, you're going to need to be careful a little bit with like your speech, especially towards your family, and also your spending, because you will feel more inclined towards spending more, and perhaps you might exert your energy too much to the point where your speech can be a little bit harsh. So be careful with that. But once Mercury goes retrograde on the 30th, you can expect Mars to begin its transit back into your 1st house, where your energy where you will be energized again. Now, 5th house, you have a stellium currently with all these planets transiting there. So at the moment you have Mercury there and it's retrograde, but after the 2nd of October, it'll go direct. So whatever you've been feeling a little bit of confusion as it pertains to like your partnerships, your romantic partners, as it pertains to your relationships, towards your creativity, also your finances. You've been feeling a little bit of confusion in that area since Mercury has been retrograde. But after the 2nd, it'll go direct, and everything will begin to make sense again, and everything will begin to align again, because the confusion will now make sense. Like why things had to happen a certain way, you'll now understand why, especially as it pertains to your relationships, and if you have children, as it pertains to your children as well. Venus is sitting there with Sun and Moon. So, I mean, not with Moon. Moon changes every 2 days. It's just that today the Moon is in Virgo as I'm recording this. But Venus is sitting there with Sun, which is bringing in an element of wanting to be seen within your relationships, or wanting to put yourself out there, wanting to meet others, wanting to be more romantic, or wanting more romance out of your relationships. You just have to be careful that your ego doesn't get in the way. That is the first half. But it's a really nice energy. I like it. It's a really good time for you to become very clear on what it is that you want out of your relationships. And it's a really good time for you to become very clear as to and plan out creative endeavors, and plan out because there's a new moon also. The new moon was yesterday, and it's right opposite Jupiter. So it's a good time for you to plan out or manifest what it is that you want out of your partnerships, so that 6 months later, it can will have been fulfilled. Then after the second part of the month, I would say after the 16th and forward, Mercury will enter your sixth house, Venus will enter your sixth house, and Sun will enter your sixth house. So Mercury and Sun will be in your sixth house on the 25th when the eclipse happens. At this time, you're going to feel a lot of pressure mounting as it pertains to your work life, as it pertains to your routine, as it pertains to your to your health, and even as it pertains to your sense of self. You can feel a little bit disconnected from your sense of self. All the energy that you had the month prior can now come a little bit crashing, or it can feel as if others are expecting a lot from you. You might want to isolate yourself, and you might feel as if you want to focus more inward, but something about your daily routine is pulling you outward. So you can feel a little bit conflicted in that sense. But at the same time, all of this energy in your sixth house can make you feel as if you have a better idea of what your life or what your work life needs to look like. You need to be careful with like enemies that might pop out that you were not expecting, because sixth house does deal with enemies, and during the eclipse it could be that, you know, something happens where you were not expecting, you know, this person to turn on you or something like that, and they do. And it can happen very quickly. Also, it can be the case that your dreams become more vivid, and through your dreams, you're able to stabilize your daily life through your dreams, because if you write them down, especially this whole year, you've been having really strong dreams. If you begin to write them down, this is a good time for you to get clarity as to what you're meant to do, and even get like inspiration through your dreams. So at the time of the eclipse, which will be on the 25th, it can feel as if you can feel a sense of loss for yourself, and a sense of loss within your career, a sense of feeling unfulfilled. But at the same time, this can push you towards becoming more clear on what it is that you want from your career, becoming more clear as to what you need to do moving forward to align with your purpose in some way. And if you work in like creative fields, this can be a good time for you to isolate, get some clarity, and then move forward after the eclipse. Now, give me 1 second. Say, especially during the eclipse, to be very careful when you're driving or with your health. Take good care of your health, especially around the time of the eclipse, because all of these planets, all of this energy is sort of pulling you into your house of health. So make sure you're focusing on your health at this time, and that you're not feeling mental imbalance, because it could be that you start to feel a little bit imbalanced because the North Node is in your 12th house. So you can feel a little bit of imbalance, which can then affect your health. So make sure around those dates, especially second half of the month forward after the 16th, you are very focused on a healthy body, on maintaining a healthy sense of self. If you feel disconnected from your health or from your body, find some kind of spiritual practice that you can work on every day that'll sort of ground you back into your body and into your health routine. Now, give me 1 second. Okay, like I was mentioning, for Taurus rising and moons, the month of October, you're going to have quite a bit of energy happening in your 5th house at the beginning, and then all of it is going into your 6th house. So there could be something around your health that you might need to take care of, especially around the eclipses. Just make sure you're not like eating foods that are going to overeating, or just eating foods that are going to upset like your digestive system. With all these planets in your 6th house, there could be something around your health that you've like been letting go of, or around like your fitness routine, or just taking care of your mental and physical health that you've been letting go of, that's could ask of your attention or second half of the month, especially during that window of the eclipse. Some of you, if you were working at a place that you were unhappy with, it could be the case that you leave that job at this time, or you just have to be careful because something can happen where you abruptly have to go around the eclipse. Also, expenses can, for some reason, increase, especially second half of the month. Once Mars enters your second house of family, they can increase because of family. There could be something around your family members that makes your expenses increase for whatever reason. And that's basically the month of October. Saturn will go direct on the second half of October. Saturn goes direct. And when this happens, it could be the case that wherever you were struggling in the area of like your wisdom or like your higher knowledge and even work, if you weren't getting the luck or the recognition that you deserve after Saturn goes direct, it could be the case that you begin to receive those good karmas. Also, your father, you could do something with your father. There's some transformation that have been happening with him that can perhaps go his way around, or good news can come from him, or if he's been struggling with his health, it could be that things get better for him after Saturn goes direct, second half of the month. Make sure that your relationship with him is good so that you can receive good positive karmas and luck from your father. So that is it for Taurus rising and moons. Off to Gemini. Gemini rising and moons, you've had Mars transiting your 12th house for the past month or two, around there. And middle of the month, beginning on the 16th, you'll have Mars transiting your first house. And at this time, you can feel very energized as it pertains to your home life, maybe as it pertains to your career, as it pertains to every area of your life, because previously, the previous months, you have been isolating and sort of focusing more on your maybe studies, or isolating because of work, or just didn't really feel like being present in the real world. You were isolating yourself. You were focusing on healing yourself, or you could have also been experiencing some losses, or just like in general expenses. Some of you have been going through breakups or struggling in terms of your relationships. Once Mars transits your first house, you're going to have more energy towards taking action in your life, and just be sure that you don't take too much action to the point where you could be a little bit aggressive towards others. You can also be a little bit aggressive in your home life and with your mother. So Mars will be there in your first house all of October, and then it'll go retrograde next month. Yeah, it'll go retrograde in November. So up until then, you're going to have a lot of energy. Use this energy positively. Focus on your health. Focus on yourself. Focus on doing things around your home. You're going to have the energy for it. You just have to direct it positively. Then you'll have your fourth house. You're also going to the beginning of the month, like you currently have. You'll have Mercury, Venus, and Sun there. So there's Mercury's retrograde, but it'll go direct October 2nd. So there could have been some confusion, misunderstandings around your home life, but once Mercury goes direct on the 2nd, all of these things are going to begin making sense again. If you just moved, or if you just signed, or if you can hold off to signing anything around a house or a move until the 2nd, or even like the 1st, I would say the 2nd better. I would do that instead of doing it now. But if you have no option, then it is what it is. You did it, and you can be moving homes, especially the first half of October. Second half of October, all of these planets are sort of going to be in along with the eclipse on the 25th, they're all transferring to your 5th house. This is where your education is going to be impacted, your relationships, your friendships. You have Rahu in the 11th house and North Node, which has brought you a lot of changes as it pertains to either your work environment, like if you work at an institution, or even like your friendships. There's been a lot of changes around that. K2 in the 5th house, there's been like some departing or letting go of old friendships or old relationships. Now, during the eclipse on the 25th and the second half of October, there's going to be a lot of energy concentrated within your relationships. So all of these planets that are right here in your currently in your 4th house, all that energy is going to go into your 5th house. So there could be some ego clashes within your relationships, or if you have children, there could be some ego clashes with friendships. There could be some misunderstandings or wanting to communicate with a partner and they are not really reciprocating as much. So there could be difficulty with that. On the bright side of things is you can also meet somebody, if you're single, that feels very fated to you. Because even though the South Node being there, K2 with the eclipses in your 5th house are bringing a separation of some sort to something that's no longer working, at the same time, it's bringing you something that is fated and or a relationship or a friendship that's very fated from the past, or even like from a past life. That could be the case for you. So watch out for that. Just don't make any sudden rash decisions during the eclipse on the 25th, and you should be okay. Saturn has been in your 8th house of losses retrograde for some time now. It's going to go direct second half of the month approximately in your 8th house. So if you were expecting some kind of gains, or if you were expecting to receive some kind of money from an investment or a lawsuit or some kind of money from others that has been delayed, or if there was something that you were waiting to hear back from as it pertained to your family, or as it pertained to some kind of loss that you had, whether that was monetary loss or like loss of a person, you can receive the results of it second half of October once Saturn goes direct in your 8th house and starts moving out of there. So that's not it's gonna bring you the positive results or what you needed to hear slowly. So it can bring you the results slowly, or it can bring you the positive karmas from the struggle that you've had the past 2 years, as it pertained to your family, as it pertained to investments, as it pertained to like something hidden that was unclear to you that could have brought you some kind of loss or some kind of transformation. Could even have to do with your mother, could even have to do with like where you're living, or could even have to do with like a vehicle. So yeah, second half of the month, you're going to receive some positive input from Saturn because of that struggle that you've been experiencing for the past 2 years. And Neptune is going to remain in your 9th house. So there's something that you can't see clearly as it pertains to like your father, as it pertains to your higher education. You can't see it clearly. It's a little bit smoky. You don't know which way it's going to go, and it's going to remain retrograde all of October, and it's going to remain in your 9th house, Neptune, all of October. So, and it's going to remain the highest planet in the sky all of October. So it's like you can see something clearly around something that deals with either school, higher education, or even like your job. You can see something clearly, but communication will happen, but it might not come to you, or it might not be what you expected. But yeah, think positively, keep a positive mind, and this is not going to be a bad month. Just watch for the eclipse time. Don't make any rash decisions, and let things unfold as they should on their own. All right, off to the next sign, which is Scorpio. Cancer, rising and moons. So you've had Mars in your 11th house for the past month and a half. And after the 16th, Mars is going to enter your 12th house. And at this time, you can experience some kind of a sense of expenses can go up. You can have a sense of loss to something, or even like your emotions. This can be pertaining your communication or your business or your career, a feeling of loss. But it's not necessarily that you're going to lose something. It's just going to feel that way. So Mars there in your 12th house, you're going to feel like isolating. You're going to feel like isolating. You're going to feel like focusing more on you. Not your action is not being taken outward. Your action is very inward at this time. And Mars is going to be there in your 12th house all of October, so you can see some expenses increase, especially as it pertains to like maybe your car can break down, or maybe like something at work can happen where you feel like expenses are now going up, or something with a sibling, or just a sense of like loss, or a sense of like expenses are going up. But just like a lot of isolation you're going to want to be doing at this time. Then you have currently you have Mercury retrograde in your third house. And this could be pertaining to your business. This could be pertaining to your, there could have been some miscommunication around your business, in your everyday life. Just communication in general could have been delayed, or there's like some miscommunication happening that you couldn't get your feelings across, or where you couldn't get what you were what you couldn't express your subconscious, whatever was going on in your subconscious, you weren't able to express it. Or maybe you let out something from the past that you had been holding on to during this retrograde. You could have said the things that you needed to say and then put them to rest during this retrograde. Now come October 2nd, once Mercury goes direct, you're going to feel a little bit of like everything now is starting to make sense, and everything is now falling into place after this retrograde. And you're going to be able to speak your truth, and others will understand, and there will be no miscommunication, no sense of loss as it pertains to that. And then middle of the month, or beginning middle of the month, most of the planets will enter your fourth house. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a difficult transit because you're going to have the eclipses happening in your 4th and 10th axis. At this time, especially once the sun enters your 4th house, your family, your mother, your whoever is part of your family, even like your friendships, they're going to ask more of you, but you're almost like unable to give them what they want. Or it's like you feel a sense of loss when you do. It's like, I either have to choose my career, or I have to choose giving my all to my family and my friends. It's like you can never win. You feel like you can't win. And around the eclipse on the 25th, is going to feel almost as if there's like a sense of loss. You need to take care of your mother's health. Even if you don't feel like being around your family, or you don't feel like being at home, it feels like a little bit of heavy, something heavy could be happening at home that can like almost like get worse around the eclipses. So just like keep a vigilant eye for your mother's health, because since December you have been sort of working on some kind of like glow up as it pertains to like your career. You could be working on some kind of glow up, and you can be working on your career and like who you're trying to become and what sort of career change you're trying to go towards. The eclipses are going to bring more of that, and the eclipses are actually going to bring you a bigger sense of purpose. And if you were looking for a job, it could be the case that you get that call back, or that you get some kind of reward at work, or that you get some kind of you're seen more, like people are taking notice of the hard work that you've been inputting, because you've been changing careers, or you've been something about your career you've been focusing on, and you've been wanting to others to see you differently. You've been wanting to change how you're perceived by others. You could have even been changing your sense of appearance, like how you look, how you portray yourself. Around the eclipses on the 25th, though, there could be something around your home life that brings you some kind of stress, where it's like your home life is pulling you back when you're trying to move forward. Something around your emotions, something around your mother, something around your home life is dragging you back. And that's how it feels. It almost feels like they're pulling you back. They're pulling you into like a lower version of yourself when you're trying to move to a higher version of you. And maybe your father can be a cause for concern around this, or maybe it's just your mother that's sort of or just like your family in general, or even like your sense of emotional happiness can be impacted at this time. This is only going to be around the eclipse, but for the second half of the month, you're going to have a stellium. Like all of these planets that are right here are going to move into this very sensitive area with K2, the south node, second half of the month. This is a very sensitive time. It's a time of caution, and it's also a time to like remain open and remain vigilant while still working on your sense of self. But remember that there's others also that are going through things. Specifically, could be your mother. Okay, now Saturn has been in your 7th house for the past 2 years. It has been retrograde there since July for some time now. So Saturn there in your 7th house retrograde could have been testing your relationships in general, not just romantic, not just marriage, just like testing all of your relationships. And you've almost gone through a cycle of like regeneration through when it comes to like your relationships. And now Saturn going direct there is going to bring you a sense of ease, almost as if, okay, so I went through this transformation and I had to struggle so much. Now things are beginning to move forward for me. Now I can finally move forward. And because Saturn is leaving that house and entering your 8th house very soon. So it's not a negative thing for Saturn. Just watch out for the Rahu K2 eclipses happening on the 25th. Try not to take any rash decisions. Try to be extra patient with like your family. Try to you can be more recognized at work at this time. All right, off to the next sign, which is Leo. Okay, so now we're off to Leo. So Leo, the first half of the month, a lot of your focus is in your family. Mercury will go direct October 1st. So any miscommunication that you had with your family or any sorting out of your finances that you've been doing while Mercury was retrograde and with your friendships is now going to get sorted out by October 2nd. And on the 26th, Mercury will completely leave your 2nd house, but it will go direct on the 2nd, so no more miscommunication. So after the 2nd, you're just going to be very business minded and very focused on expending most of your finances on family. So family might require more of you. There could be some expenses around that, but really you are becoming more aligned with whatever it is that you need to do in terms of like your finances, especially after the 2nd. So on the 16th, the first half of the month, like I said, it will remain the same as it has been up to now. Your ruler sun will enter your 3rd house on the 17th. Yeah, on the 17th of October, and this will mark the 2nd half of the month for you. So the 2nd half of the month, I would say that you might be getting more benefits than you did the first half. So the 2nd half is going to be more beneficial for you in terms of because the first half is like a lot of your energy up until now with Mars being in your 10th, you've been focusing on work. A lot of maybe you could have been very passionate about your work. You've had a lot of your energy going towards your work life, maybe even had some arguments at work or were very passionate to the point where others could have been a little bit turned off by your assertion as it pertains to your career and your work life. After the 16th, Mars leaves that area and it enters your 11th house of friendship. So all of your energy is sort of going to be towards manifesting the things that you were putting so much energy into the past few months. So once Mars enters your 11th, and you're also going to be focused more in your creativity, in your love life, and even in your like wanting to spend more time with friends. After the 17th, there could be some celebration that happens around you, like in your household. With Mars being in the 11th and the ruler of your first being in the 3rd, there could be some also ruling your 10th and Mars ruling your 9th. There could be some kind of auspicious celebration that you have at home where you invite friends over, or some kind of auspicious celebration that you go into sometime in October for sure. Now, you do have to be very cautious because on the 25th, there will be an eclipse. And this eclipse will be bringing into your life, there could be something around your willpower or something, because this whole stellium that's going on, let me mark it right here so you guys can see it. This stellium that you have right now in your 2nd house of family is going to be shifting to your 3rd house after the 2nd half of the month, where you will have your the eclipses happen in your 9th and 3rd axis. So at this time, it's like you're wanting to communicate to others your belief systems that to the point where you might be asserting too much of it onto others. It could be, or you could be rapidly changing the way that you believe. If you believed in something and maybe you change your mind around that. This could have been unfolding since December, but around the eclipses is like going to be triggered times 100, especially because the sun is also going to be there with K2 and Venus, and then Mercury on the 26th. It's like you really want to express something, you really want to voice something or communicate something, but you've been cut off from that. And so your beliefs have been sort of shifting because of this, or maybe even something to do with like your sense of willpower, that you have sort of shifted gears towards what you believed around that. And when all these planets shift to your third house, it's like all of this energy is almost like a pressure cooker is melting. Just be careful you're not too aggressive towards your voicing yourself and towards your self-expression, to the point where others are a little bit others can be hurt by the things that you say, because you could be a little bit cutting, especially around the eclipses. With all those planets there in your third house, it's like my willpower is going to overpower everything else in life, because it's almost as if you have lost what you believed in has forced you to change the way that you carry yourself in your everyday life. There could have been something that you believed in that really forced you to have to change that. It could have been around your family, your sense of self, and like your happiness. On the 25th, just don't make any rash decisions. Wait until things unfold on their own, because on the 25th, there will be an eclipse. So your willpower is being impacted, your wish fulfillments, your wishes are being impacted, your good karmas are being impacted. So 9th house is being impacted during the eclipses, and so is your 3rd house. So just don't be too everything should be fine. This is not a bad placement for the eclipses. Actually, it's not. It's just like you are becoming more spiritual and you're wanting to voice, or you're changing your beliefs of the world around you, and you're wanting to voice that. And it's almost as if you are finding new ways to voice that, and you feel almost as if people are not hearing you. That could be the case. Like you don't feel heard enough when it comes to what you believe in and what you are ready to fight for, sort of thing. It's not a bad placement. It's just a placement of changes of beliefs. Your father might need you at this time. I'm not saying that anything bad is going to happen with him, but he might just need you at this time. Then, okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, so we still will have Neptune in Aquarius in retrograde. It'll still be there. So for Leo risings, it'll be in your 7th house. So things about like your career or maybe your relationships with others will still be very unclear during this time, especially because Neptune's at its highest degree. So it can kind of bring a lot of confusion or like fogginess as it pertains to maybe like your career or again, your relationships. And so because it's at its highest, it's kind of going to intensify it in a way, like in result, you'll become more frustrated by how things are just so unclear. But because it's more like an Aquarius sign, in result, you'll just learn to kind of let go and just think of the more spiritual lesson that comes from it. So like if you're like in a relationship where, or I'll say business. So like if you're in a business and things are just not going right, or if you have like business partners and things are just very unclear with them and it kind of frustrates you during this time, you may just be like, okay, well, look, I don't understand what this person's perspective, like why they want things to be this way, but I have to understand that like I can't control that. And if it's meant to work out, if the business is meant to work out, if the partnership's meant to work out, then it'll work out. So it kind of just makes you have like a more spiritual perspective on it, so that, yeah, rather than being like just frustrated and wondering why is things not working this way and that way, you'll just become more spiritual with it.
And that's going to stay like that all of October. It'll remain the highest degree for the most part, but either way, that energy will still be like underlying all month. where it's like there's confusion in this area with your romantic partners and your marriage, with your relationships, with your business partners, with other people. But then it's you coming to some sort of like spiritual realization, like Michelle was saying, of maybe I can't, maybe I'm not meant to get clarity because I just need to let it go, and whatever's meant to be will be, sort of thing. That's all Neptune wants to do. It's going to bring you sort of like a fog, like you can't see that area very clearly. You can't see people's intentions very clearly because it wants you to come into like the more spiritual conclusion of it. It's going to remain retrograde. It's going to remain there. So it's just going to happen. That's just what it is. And now Saturn, well, Saturn is going to go direct on the 26th, and Michelle is going to explain to you what that means.
Yeah, so right now you guys do still have, again, Saturn is currently still retrograde in Capricorn in your guys' sixth house. So, but it will be going direct. So right now, while it is still retrograde, during this time, you definitely could be revising things relating to your day-to-day routine or your health. So during this time, usually something that happened about 2 years ago, when it's in retrograde, it'll come back into fruition now. So like if there is something that you were neglecting in your work life or in your health, this is the time where you'll start to, you'll kind of be forced to kind of revise these things. And then once it goes direct, that's when you'll be able to take action. You'll be able to be more structured.
Bringing with you the lessons that you learned during the retrograde.
Okay, yeah. So you'll be like bringing the lessons of your neglect with you. And so when it goes direct, then you'll start implementing, having a more structured routine, and yeah, just being more disciplined again in your either work life or in your health.
Yeah, because it's almost as if the last, since Saturn went retrograde, you've been having to revisit and revise since July. Things have been coming up around your work, around your everyday life, around your health, that have asked you to come to certain realizations that you have been dealing with the past 2 years. So certain realizations have forced you to revise your work, how you manage your work, how you take care of your health, what you do to take care of your health, your routine, right? And now once Saturn goes direct, it's almost as if you're taking with you all of these revisions and all of these lessons that you had to learn during the retrograde and culmination of the last 2 years, and bringing it with you, so that now as Saturn moves out of your sixth house, you can have for the next 30 years a lesson of how to manage yourself in your everyday life in a better way. So Saturn will give you the results of all of this discipline that you've had to implement the last 2 years in your sixth house, in your everyday life, in your work life. And whatever you've had to revisit the last few months. So yeah, it's not a bad placement. And now with once it goes direct, it's going to give you the results of the hard work you've been going through in this area. Now we're off to the next. Jupiter will remain retrograde in your eighth house. So things are slowly, gains are coming still slowly. They're coming, but they're coming very slowly towards you. And it's going to remain like that until sometime November. So we're not going to talk about it. It's the same thing as it's been. So now we're off to the next sign, which is the Virgo. Okay, so Virgo risings and moons. So the first half of the month is very, very good for you because you have Mercury in your own sign in your very first house, even though it's retrograde, but on the second, it'll go direct. So, and then Sun is also there with Venus. So you're feeling beautiful. You're being seen by others, and your sense of like how you manage yourself, your logical way of thinking and expressing yourself is going to be aligned again once Mercury goes direct, because up until now there could have been some confusion or misunderstandings at work, in your career, how you're perceived by others. Maybe you weren't able to get your point across the way that you wanted to. The way that you were trying to be perceived was not coming off the way that you intended. But once Mercury goes direct, that's no longer going to be the case. The first half of the month, enjoy this energy because it's very beautiful. You can get a lot done, especially as it pertains to your wishes, as it pertains to your sense of self, maybe changing your appearance in some way you've been thinking about. Also, you're being seen in everything that you do, everywhere that you go. People are taking notice of you. You're way more charismatic, and you feel more beautiful than usual. Now, also partnerships can get a little bit easier once the retrograde is over on the 2nd. Now, the second half of the month is going to be a little bit more complex because that's where the eclipses are going to happen on the 25th of October. So Sun will enter your second house on the 17th. Venus will enter your second house on the 18th, and Mercury will enter your second house on the 26th. So while Sun and Venus are going to join the South Node K2 for a partial solar eclipse in your second house of sense of self and of self. So second house of finances, you've been going through some kind of transformation as it pertains to your family. Maybe you've been letting go of toxic patterns around your speech, how you communicate with your family or finances in general. This is also affecting, like, maybe your father has been a little bit more difficult than usual, or if you're in a higher education, you've been really focused on that. And you're feeling like a sense of loss to some extent. You've been transforming your finances or your business, changing something about it, or maybe working more on investments, that you've been investing more or wanting to invest more or wanting to just transform your finances in some way. Maybe even buying property. So much could have happened for you up until now, but you have been feeling these changes coming since December. Now, the first half, around May, when the first eclipses happened, there was a lot of energy that was being focused in your sense of transformation. Like, you had to transform your sense of self completely. You had to transform your finances, your family. Now, once the eclipse happened on the 25th, it's almost like this transformation that had been happening is now coming to like a culmination of some sort. So something about your family, there could be some losses, or there could be some financial stress, or some financial discord, or even just transformation that you go through. It doesn't have to be negative, it's just going to be highlighted. The eclipse is on the 25th. Don't make any harsh decision as it pertains to your family. Don't make any sudden decisions on that day. Let things unfold. Let things unfold on their own. They will. It's better than just making a harsh, rash decision on that day. So something around your family, that you have been letting go of on the 25th. Don't make any sudden decisions, but also you can begin to see some kind of result in your finances or in your family that you had been expecting from this transformation that you have undergone the past few months since December. So you can get some results, but a lot of your energy is going there, and you feel very pulled into your family when you're wanting to go out of it and you're wanting to focus on other areas of life, and yet you're being pulled back, maybe by your father, maybe by male figures, or maybe even by needing to change or transform your financial situation. So yeah, that's going to happen. Then Michelle, you were going to tell them about
Mars.
Yeah.
So yes, Mars is currently in your 9th house in Taurus, but it will be going into Gemini on the 16th. And so that'll be affecting your 10th house. So during this time, like she said, there could be like a lot of focus maybe with your father, or if you're in school, there could be some sort of focus on higher learning. And so once it goes into Gemini, then you could be taking more action towards your image, like how you're perceived. So you could be taking like the lessons from either like the lessons from like the education or higher learning, and you could be implementing them now so
wisdom.
that you
Like
can.
there's some wisdom that they could have gathered the past few months with Mars there in their 9th house. A lot of wisdom that they learned, especially with all this transformation, that now they're taking with them to what you were saying, to their career.
Yeah, so now they'll be taking those lessons that they learned to, I guess, better assert themselves or better, to make sure they're, what's the word I want to say? To make sure they're, I guess, taking action like towards how they're perceived. So like they're taking the lessons that they learned to better implement how they're being seen by others. Because maybe before, like there was like some confusion or things weren't very clear, but now they're going to be taking more action towards their image to make sure that their beliefs are being perceived correctly by others.
Yeah, so Mars in the ninth house was giving you a lot of connection that was more spiritual with others, but now as it enters your 10th house, you're going to have a lot more energy. Like your energy with the outside world is going to be more, it's going to be a lot stronger, and you're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to be more talkative, especially this is good for your career. If you wanted to get a new job, you were looking for a new job, this is a great time for you to put yourself out there. Or if you wanted to improve your career and just like expand it and work extra hours, it's a good time for that, because you're going to have the energy necessary for it. Just be careful that you're not too aggressive with those at work, and you don't say things or get into arguments that you might later regret, because you are so passionate about your career right now that you could be a little bit too aggressive in this area. Versus before, a lot of your, Mars was in your ninth house, you were feeling a lot of strength and a lot of energy towards finding your truth and your beliefs. Now as it enters your 10th house, you are coming in with a sense of self and a sense of new set of belief systems that you can now implement in your career, and you can implement as how you want to be perceived, and just lots of energy towards the outside world. It's really good. It's really good placement. I love having the placement of transit Mars in the 10th house, and enjoy this because after the 30th, it'll begin its retrograde motion back into your 9th to revisit things around your beliefs. So yeah, lots of energy in your 10th house. Now, you want to tell them about Neptune in the 6th?
Yeah, so Neptune will still be in the 6th house in retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. So during this time, you still could be experiencing a lot of confusion, I guess, as it pertains to your day-to-day work, or even like your health. Maybe some things about it could be very unclear. And let me see. So yeah, so there could be some sort of frustration, like if there is anything health-wise that's going on, or just anything at work, like if there's some people you're not getting along with, you could be experiencing a lot of frustration with that. And so during this time, since Neptune is at its highest, you now could be, because you feel so much like frustration from it, because Neptune's at its highest in Aquarius, and result, you're going to end up just you're going to have to kind of let go and just take the lessons that you're experiencing in those areas and just kind of look at it from a more philosophical perspective. So if there is something, again, like going on in your day-to-day work life with a colleague, for example, and you're not getting along, or you're just not seeing things clearly, like you're just having a lot of disagreements in that area, during this time, you could come to a realization that, hey, this is something I can't control. If it's meant for things to work out this way, it will. And if it's not, it won't. And that's okay. So yeah, that'll still be like the theme while it's still retrograde.
Yeah, well, it's still retrograde and being the highest. So it's like an annoyance that you have in the back of your mind that could even be related to your relationships, because the ruler is in the 5th. Where you have in the back of your mind that you can't see your relationships clearly, or that you can't see where your life is going or where your work life is going clearly. And it's sort of like in the back of your mind because it's the highest degree taking precedent, and sort of it's back there like a little annoying thing that you always have in the back of your mind. You might not speak about it, but you're always thinking about it. And but it's asking you ultimately to find like the spiritual way of viewing it, because you're not going to get clarity. You're not going to see an outcome unless you find your own sense of clarity in a spiritual sense, in a spiritual way, even if you can't see right now the outcome, even if you can't see it very clearly right now. But yeah, that was really good, Michelle. And then you have Saturn in your 5th. It's going to remain in your 5th all month, but Saturn will go direct on the 23rd. Once Saturn goes direct, it's almost as if you're taking with you everything that you have been revisiting since July, because you have been revisiting some things around your romantic life and around your creativity, or if you have children, with your children, you have been revising and tweaking and evaluating things around that have not been working. And once Saturn goes direct, it's almost as if you're going to get the results or the benefits of everything that you revised that dealt with your romantic life for the past 2 years, because you've been going through a transformation and you've been going through some issues as it pertained to your romance for the past 2 years. And it's almost as if you're now taking that with you when Saturn goes direct, taking the lessons that you had to learn in that area and becoming a better person because of it, and moving forward once Saturn goes direct and leaves this area. So Saturn will go direct on the 26th, but it won't leave this area until January of 2023. And Jupiter will remain in your 5th house, in your 7th house, retrograde. So nothing's going to change much about that. So there's been some slow realizations and some slow, you could meet somebody, but things are not going to pick up for you until it goes direct next month. And we'll talk about it next month in next month's reading. But other than that, we're off to the next sign, which is Libra. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Libra. Okay, so Libra, you guys have so much going on. You are literally the star of the month of October. There's just so much going on. So let's begin to unpack it. Okay, so at the beginning of the month, you will have so many planets. The first half of the month, you have Mercury, you have Sun, you have Venus in your 12th house, which means that you are doing a lot of inner reflection. You are reflecting on your life. You're reflecting on secluding, isolating, reflecting. Things could have happened during the retrograde where you felt as if you needed to voice, or as if you needed to change your beliefs because your current ones, something about it was not working, something about it was not aligning with you. So then this happened during the retrograde. Now on October 2nd, Mercury finally goes direct. And on the 16th, so now once Mercury goes direct on the 12th, you'll begin to feel a little bit better as it pertains to like your belief systems and this discord that you were having around that. Could have been also relating to school or work. So you were having some kind of discord that made you like want to isolate. Then after the 16th, so once Mercury goes direct, your Venus is going to cancel out its debilitation, because Venus in Virgo is debilitated in your 12th house. And what this means is that you can be feeling very nostalgic. You can be feeling a bit, especially the first half of the month, a bit nostalgic, a bit like you're losing something, like you're losing a spark, like you've lost something about you that you feel it's out of reach at this point. Because Venus is debilitated. But once Mercury goes direct, that debilitation gets stronger because Mercury is in its own sign in your 12th house. So then you're gonna begin after the 2nd thinking about plans on what you need to do moving forward to have a better sense of self. Because come 16th of October, Sun moves into your 1st house, and this is when you will become unstoppable, because all eyes are on you at this point, and you're feeling like since December, I have been feeling a sense of loss. I've been feeling a sense of loss as it pertains to my partnerships. I have been feeling a sense of loss to myself. Based on wherever you have Venus in your chart, whatever house, that's the area that's getting the most impacted for you. If it's in your 8th house, you can be feeling a loss of like sex drive. If it's in your 1st house, it's a loss of self. So it's based on where your Venus is placed in your chart. Look at that to see what kind of loss you've been experiencing since December. And so now you're like, I have to take matters into my own hands because I'm losing so much. Like the September was a time of realizations, and you felt like you've been losing so much, and now it's time to take matters into your own hands. So once Sun goes into your first house, you're going to begin taking action. You're going to feel a little bit better. You're going to feel like eyes are on you, for better or for worse. A good example of this is Mila Kunis. She has been struggling a lot for the past, I would say, 4 years. She had the South Node the last 2 years in her first house, and now she has it over her moon. And even like the other day, I saw her like in doing like public appearances, which she has not done in a while, and she was looking absolutely stunning. Not as young as she used to, but she looked absolutely drop dead gorgeous in a new, more mature way. So that's exactly similar to what you're going to begin feeling now, come October. Today's already the 1st, so beginning today, you're gonna start feeling like, I'm ready to get myself out there, stop isolating, and try to become healthier, or at least get some kind of solution as to why I've been feeling the way I've been feeling. Then once Venus moves into your first house, and you're going to be able, then you're going to feel more beautiful, more alive, more with a sense of obsessed, of vitality, of I'm ready to be my old charming self. Your relationships can bring are still rocky. Like if your relationship is going well, okay, then don't worry about it. You guys are just getting stronger this difficult time. Some of you, if your relationship is going really well, you guys can maybe propose at this time, especially after the 25th when the eclipses hit. Once the eclipses hit on the 25th, there's going to be some kind of like culmination that things are going to finally start falling into place, where you feel like, since December of last year, I have been feeling like I'm losing a part of myself. My relationships are in shambles. Or if your relationships are going well, you can be feeling like my relationships are going really great. So why do I feel this way? You were feeling this since December. There could have been some kind of culmination point around April, May, June. An event could have unfolded June, July, beginning of August. Now it's like you're going to become stronger and have the ability to make the decisions that you should have probably made a long time ago, and really stick to them. If it's end the relationship, then you're going to do that. If it's become stronger in your own sense of self, you're going to do that. If it's get married, you're going to do that. If it's get married but feel more confident within yourself, you're going to do that. Some of you might even get pregnant also. It's a time for where Aries and Libra risings can get pregnant, and moons can get pregnant or get married or go through a divorce or end a relationship or focus on themselves. It's a lot of changes for you and Aries, because the eclipses are illuminating you, and they're not going to let it go by without some major changes. So this is major for you. After the 25th, on the 26th, is when, I believe that's when Venus enters your so right after, at the nick of time, right after the eclipses. No, Mercury enters your first house. So now you've been feeling more beautiful. You've been able to sort of align more with your truth. And once Mercury gets there, now you're going to piece everything together mentally and really have a very deep understanding of what was happening within yourself. Just don't make any rash decisions in terms of your relationship from now to the 25th, because it's like, this is a period where everything's very sensitive, everything's very vulnerable, because we're leading up to the eclipse season. There's an activation that has been opened. So it's almost like a door, like a portal that opened around the eclipses back in April. Things have unfolded, and now it's like it's the closing of this portal to then allow the aftermath that will unfold in the next 6 months. So the closing of the portal, the very first one, which is the solar eclipse happening in your first house, will be on the 25th of October. A day before and a day after, don't make any rash decisions, because whatever decision you make, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly. Now, will you have thought it through? I don't know. So you don't know what the outcome will be ultimately. Just try to let things unfold as they will, and they will. They sure will, because this is a karmic axis. Then after the 25th, that opens a small window of opportunity that will then close in November 9th, when the final lunar eclipse happens in your 7th house. So when the final lunar eclipse happens in your 7th house, it's like now closing everything together and squishing it together to sort of make a whole. Like you've been feeling really as if you have as if you've lost yourself, or as if you can't really see where all of this is going, but you know something's happening, you just can't pinpoint it. After the 9th, that closure will begin to unfold in the next 6 months. So yeah, it's a very important time for you guys. Not a negative thing. This is a very destiny shaping transit. Whatever is meant to be, it's what's going to be. So don't fight with the flow. Allow the flow to unfold, because it will be either way. And then on the 22nd, Saturn goes direct for you in your 4th house. So the past 2 years, you've been feeling a little bit tensed around your home life, not only because you've had the North Node in your 7th house, but because also Saturn has been in your 4th house of home. Those are your emotions. When Saturn sits there, it almost feels as if you had Saturn with Moon, which is very restricting, which is very limiting as it pertains to your emotions. You feel like you have so much pressure mounting, and you have so much emotional baggage that you're unable to just release and let flow and let go. So because of this pressure that you feel mounting for the last 2 years, you've probably felt very uneasy. Some of you could have moved at this time, especially around July, or changed careers. That's also a big possibility with that Saturn being in your 4th house. Or even just like started building a home, but there was like a lot of delays, or tried to move and there was like a lot of delays, or something around your mother could have come up in these past 2 years that you were that made you feel uneasy. Your relationship with your mother, or just like women in general, or just like your emotions, unable to release them, especially at home, unable to feel easy and unable to feel satisfied at home. Now, Saturn, once it goes direct, is going to begin to give you the results of the last 2 years of the struggles that you went through, because Saturn is in its own sign in Capricorn. So it's not going to harm you. It's not going to harm the house it's in when it's in its own like loving sign where it was born. So it's not going to harm you. It's just going to feel uneasy. Saturn loves being in Capricorn and in Aquarius, so it's not in a negative placement. Now, if Saturn was in Aries in the 4th house, then I would say that's very difficult, and you probably will not get the results of the last 2 years. Because it's in its own sign, Saturn is going to begin giving you the good karmas if that's what you worked for, you know? But if you didn't, then you're going to get the karmas, just not the good ones. So just reevaluate, do the righteous thing, take the righteous path always, and you're going to get the good results. This is actually, even though it's going to be a difficult month for you, it's actually a good month. It's a good month. It's a good one. Then Neptune is in your 5th house and is the highest degree. So there's something around your relationships that you can't see clearly, and you probably won't. And things won't be how you expected them to be. Things will turn out to be completely different than what you were thinking it would be. So you were thinking something would go one way, and it goes the complete opposite way. Neptune in your 5th house, it's in it's the highest degree, and it's going to be at the highest degree in the sky for quite a few. It's going to be there the highest for quite a long time. So it's like we're reevaluating wherever Neptune is in our chart, what we can see clearly about. And for you, it's your romance. So it's like you're not going to get the clarity that you need, but you will get the spiritual clarity that you need in order for you to move forward in that area. Or it could be that you get a very dreamy relationship that just knocks you off your feet, that you can't see, that you did not see coming, that you could not see clearly, but it's very Neptunian, it's very dreamy, and it's very smoky, and it's very like unclear, but yet you feel all these like crazy emotions when it comes to it. So not a bad placement. Then Jupiter is going to remain retrograde in your 6th house, so I won't even go there. Next month when it goes direct, I'll talk more about Jupiter. This is Oh, and on the 16th, Mars leaves your 8th house and goes into the 9th. That's really good because Mars in the 8th house could have been bringing you a lot of emotional stress, a lot of emotional pain, or a lot of emotional traumas that were surfacing, or you could have maybe even like if you weren't careful, some of you could have gone into an accident, or if you weren't or maybe you would just get a lot of your action was going towards investments and properties and finding out secrets. But on the 16th, it leads into your 9th house, and now you're sort of taking action towards your beliefs, towards your work, towards your inner world and what you need to do to heal that. So yeah, it's a big month for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the eclipse video that I will do next week and the Saturn video that I will also do hopefully next week. Otherwise, I'm off to the next sign, which is Scorpio. Let me pause this. Scorpio rising and moon. So this month, it's a big month for everyone, honestly, but it's also a really big month for you. So you're going to, after the 16th, first half of the month, you have a lot of planets in your 11th house, which is your house of hopes and wishes, of manifestations, especially after the 2nd of October. Once Mercury goes direct and your Venus in the 12th house, Venus is currently in the 12th house in the sign of Virgo. Wait 1 second. Let me move this too. Which means that Venus is currently debilitated in the 1st house. I mean, in your 12th house. And what happens when Venus is debilitated, all the significations of Venus are positive. It's all about love. It's all about going with our gut feelings, going with leading with our heart, doing the things that we love, going for the things that we love. While Mercury's retrograde, it's sort of Venus's debilitation becomes even more pronounced. So we're thinking more logically, we're thinking more negatively, we're not doing things from our heart. And so after the 2nd, once Mercury goes direct in its own sign, and it's in its favorite sign, being in its exaltation point of Virgo, Venus then becomes stronger and the debilitation sort of simmers down a bit. So after the 2nd, once Mercury goes direct, your Venus in the 12th house is making you more creative, and it's making you more isolated and more secluded, because you're really trying to get a hold of what it is that you need, what it is that you want, what it is that brings you happiness, especially during the retrograde. The few weeks of the retrograde, there was some kind of impact to your hopes and wishes and towards how you're perceived by others. There was some kind of something could have happened during the retrograde where you could have begun to feel a bit maybe anxious, or maybe a bit in your feelings, or a bit secluded because of how you're being perceived in your career and by the outside world, and by others in general. Possibly friends, there could have been some kind of miscommunication with friends that happened. There could have been some kind of miscommunication within romantic relationships that was really impacted, and so it could have made you feel hopeless, because 11th house is the house of gains, is the house of manifestations, is the house of our hopes and wishes. But because Mercury was debilitated, and because Venus is debilitated there, along with Mercury being retrograde, it's almost as if your hopes and wishes came crashing down to some point or another, or your communication was not clear, or you weren't able to express your innermost emotions. And so that could have impacted you. After the 2nd, which today's already the 1st, Mercury goes direct in your 11th house. And this is the time when you can utilize what happened during the retrograde to sort of whatever revision, whatever you reanalyzed and whatever you did during the retrograde, now take it with you moving forward and utilize it as like as a way to view things within a different context, within a different lens. Now we're carrying with us what we learned during the retrograde and coming out of the retrograde feeling like we learned a lesson. Now it's time to move forward. And how do we take this with us so we can move forward in a more positive or in the best way we possibly can? And after that's the first half of the month, you're focusing on it's a good time to manifest. It's a good time, especially because you're going to have Venus, Mercury, Sun, and Venus, everything together in your 11th house of hopes and wishes. This is a beautiful, beautiful energy to have there, impacting your career, impacting your sense of self, impacting how you're seen by others, impacting your romance, your romantic relationships. All of that is sort of being activated. So after the 16th, after the second half of the month, your things are going to become a little bit more difficult for you, because all of the stellium that you currently have in your 11th house of manifestations and hopes and wishes will then go into your 12th house. And where the eclipses will happen. The eclipse will be on the 25th, and wait, what happened? 1 second. Yeah, the eclipse will take place on the 25th, and it'll be a solar eclipse that will happen in your 12th house. Oh wait, why did it change back to Libra? 1 second. Okay, so you see all of these planets right here that were before in your 11th house of manifestations and hopes and wishes. They're all going to go into your 12th house of isolation, seclusion, mental health, health in general, fears, anxiety, and also creativity. So at this time, it could have been that for some of you, first half of the month, you could have manifested a new relationship. You could have met somebody. You could have manifested a relationship, met somebody, or you could have even had some kind of revelation or some kind of increase that happened for you during the first half of the month. Then the second half of the month, it's almost as if you're isolating and kind of like putting into the puzzle pieces whatever happened the first half of the month and whatever happened since December up until now. Because since December, you've had the eclipses happening in your 6-12 axis. And so it has been activating some kind of like inner fear or inner turmoil that you have been carrying since for many years. And so around April, when the eclipses happened, it opened a portal for you to focus more on your sense of self as it pertains to your health, as it pertains to your wellness, your work, your everyday life. Something around work could have gotten more difficult for you around this time. There could have been some kind of difficulty with coworkers, or just like something around your work life that made you realize this is not working for me. This is not serving my highest and greatest good. And some of you could have left your current jobs and found something that you felt aligned better. Some of you might not. Some of you might be completely shifting gears, shifting careers, or shifting your everyday environment. Others could be just working on their health, because for the past 2 years, something about your health was really impacted, where you felt a loss of self to an extent. So since December, you've been working on your health, you've been working on your physical and your mental health. You've been trying to align that so that it can suit better your goals, because of the realizations that you had 2 years prior. And so the eclipses happen around April, May, and then now come October 25th, this is going to be the closure to that tunnel that was open, that has been open for all these months, sort of like unfolding karmically, because the Rahu Ketu, that zone, wherever it's placed in our chart, that's the karmic axis that is being activated for us during the during the 18 months of whatever sign it's in, if that makes sense. For you, it has been in your 6 and 12. 6 and 12 is always going to be a very life-changing axis, because the 6 houses are everyday life. right? It's what we need the strongest, the most in order to make something work. We need something in our everyday life, in our routine. If not, it doesn't work. And then 12th house is our inner self, our inner fears, our subconscious mind, our dream worlds, our other realms. It also deals with our creativity and our sense of bed pleasures. So it could be that at this time, during the eclipse, you can feel a need to isolate, seclude yourself so that you can become more clear on what your purpose is and on how to get your health in check. For some of you, it could be a difficult time with all these planets there in your 12th house. The 12th house is never easy. So it's like a culmination of these inner energies that you're unable to fully come to terms with because they're so hidden from you that you have to sort of come to terms with very unconsciously in order to heal from them. And in order for then, as a return for your everyday life, 6th house to become more balanced. If you don't balance your inner self, your outer self will never catch up because one is not independent of the other. Everything's interconnected. And so all of this energy culminating and like building, it's like a pressure cooker. It's like this energy, after the 16th, you'll begin to feel it. Then on the 18th, become stronger. Then on the, when does the sun enter that area? On the 17th, the sun entering, highlighting your inner self. But at the same time, you can feel, because sun in the 12th house is not a good placement, it makes you feel as if you can't move forward. It makes you feel a little bit stuck within your sense of self. So this eclipse season is going to be an exploration of your inner self, so that once all of these planets move into your first house, you can then take action towards your sense of self and towards your dreams. See, North Node. So the eclipse on the 25th is going to be a solar eclipse in your 12th house, highlighting your inner self, your inner realms. Then on November 9th, that will close off, because on November 9th, it'll be the final lunar eclipse with the full moon that will happen in your 6th house. So it's like a culmination of everything that will wrap together on November 9th. So that time between the 25th and November 9th is crucial. Try not to make any rash decisions that you might regret later on the 25th or on November 9th. Like, stay put, let things unfold on their own, because everything might not be visible to you, since 12th house is your inner self and you can't really see it tangibly. So then the eclipse on the 25th, on November 9th, is going to affect your sense of self, because it's happening. The ruler of your first house is exactly where the eclipses are happening. So this is going to impact you tremendously. It's a karmic point. So just know that it's meant to unfold in this manner. It's meant for you to go towards your karmic obligations or your karmic destiny, kind of thing. Now, that's going to be crucial for you. Check where you have Venus in your chart, because on the 25th, wherever you have Venus, that's what's going to be the most activated during the eclipse. So if you have Venus in the 8th house, it'll mean something along the lines of investments, along the lines of secrets. If you have Venus in the 4th house, it'll be something along the lines of revelation around your home life, around your happiness. So just check where you have Venus in your own charts. And you have had for the last 2 years, you have had Saturn in your 3rd house. This could have been a time when you started a new business, when you became very business oriented, but there was like a lot of delays, there was a lot of obstacles, there was a lot of unpleasantness that came with it, because you were meant to learn lessons around being deliberate and around taking the righteous path as it pertains to your willpower and your hobbies, or around your business. If you started a business or if you have a business, you were learning lessons around that. Now, it could have been difficult, but at the same time, it's not a bad placement for Saturn, because it gives you a very strong ability to create new hobbies that you can then turn into a business venture. Around On the 22nd, Saturn will go direct, and it'll be direct there in your third house all the way until January of 2023, when it leaves and it enters your fourth house. At this time, when Saturn goes direct, it's highly likely that you will now begin to see the fruits of the labors of your past 2 years. So all the struggle, all the hard work as it pertains to this new venture, your willpower, communication, your new business, your new hobbies, after the 22nd, things will begin to move forward slowly but steadily, and then you'll get like the results of that. You could have seen something that could have happened around July and beginning of August. So it could have been pertaining your job, it could have been pertaining your higher education, or it could have been pertaining your belief system. Something around that shifted because it was activating Saturn retrograde. Now, when Saturn goes direct, things are going to become more clear, and they're going to make more sense, and you're going to be able to receive the good results of the struggle of your last 2 years. Just make sure you continue doing the righteous, take the righteous path, because Pluto is also sitting there with Saturn, and Pluto is the lowest degree planet in the sky. Being the lowest degree planet, it means that a lot of energy is within this axis. A lot of transformation is within this axis that is pulling you, and is sort of making you have to reevaluate and have to constantly go through periods of transformation as it pertains to your belief systems, and as it pertains to your willpower, your maybe even career, or maybe even higher education, or maybe even how you express your sense of self, or business, or communication in general. You've been having to go through transformations around that. So just watch for doing the righteous thing, take the righteous path, and Saturn will reward you. Then you currently have in your fourth house Neptune as the highest degree planet in the sky. So the lowest degree planet is Pluto. That's a planet of transformation. That's pretty gnarly. That's pretty very transformational kind of placement. And then we have Neptune, the planet of illusions, the planet of delusions, of not seeing clearly, of spirituality, and of the masses, even sort of being the highest degree. So the lowest degree being transformation, the highest degree being unable to see this transformation. For you, the highest degree Neptune is in your fourth house. So your emotions, it's like you can't see something clearly around your home life, around your emotions. Things feel very unclear. Things can feel a bit gloomy, or a bit as if hard to reach, or as if you can't really see the outcome, or you can't really see through this smoky delusions. So what Neptune is asking of you is to take the spiritual route, because you might not get the clarity that you want, because it's unclear. Like, you can't see through. If you're trying to control something, you won't see through it, because Neptune wants you instead to go the spiritual route, to go towards receiving that inner peace within yourself, or receiving some kind of inner happiness that you give yourself through your own sense of spirituality, through your own sense of becoming aligned with source. And that is the only way that Neptune will give you your clarity, because Neptune will make it so that it's unclear. Neptune, and it's not that it's unclear, it's just unclear to you. You just can't see it clearly, or you can feel as if almost like Neptune feels like a gloomy day where you think it's going to rain, where you think it's going to thunder, but it doesn't. And then suddenly the sun comes out. So it's not what you expected. It's not what you're thinking. It never is with Neptune. So it's difficult to jump to conclusions, because it's almost as if it's never going to be what you think it is. It's probably something different, and it's probably something more spiritual. So the best way to deal with this slow and this gloomy and this very spiritual energy is to find yourself within that area of life, and find yourself in the sense of finding the spiritual way of viewing the situation, or of viewing yourself, or of viewing your home life, since it's in your fourth house, or of viewing the things that bring you happiness. So just find the spiritual outlet, find the spiritual way, trust in the universe, and trust that Neptune just wants you to become more spiritually aware, spiritually awakened, and spiritually involved. And once you do that, it gives you the clarity that you needed, or it gives you the answers that you needed to sort of become a better person, if that makes sense. It's very, it's even like Neptune is so like, it's so shadowy and so like dreamy, that it's even hard to explain. Like, it's hard to get a hold of what Neptune truly means. And when you Google it, it means so many things. And it's like, which one is it? How do I connect this to what's happening for me? It's hard. Like, it's hard to explain, because that's how unclear Neptune is. And it never goes the way that you thought, the way that you expected it to go, because it wants you to take a more spiritual route. Okay, now Jupiter is going to remain in your fifth house. It's bringing up I won't even get into it, because I've gotten into it in other months. So until next month, once Jupiter goes direct, I'll just say Jupiter's going to remain in your fifth house. It's expanding your sense of romance and your sense of relationships, but possibly things you're needing to revise. You're needing to revise something around that area. So yeah, I'll talk about it next month once it goes direct, what that means. But overall, okay. And then Mars is leaving your seventh house. Mars has been in your seventh house for the past few months. So helping you take action towards or helping you become more passionate in your relationships. Your partner could be more passionate, could have been more passionate as well. You were more passionate. There could have been like passionate love affairs, or there could have been like a relationship that you took a lot of action towards, or that you were able to build or take action towards the past few weeks. Now, because Mars is leaving your seventh house, there could have also been arguments and bickering within your relationships as well, because Mars is leaving your seventh house is going to give you a break in that area of life. Like, it's not going to be such a passionate area, not as much action in it after the 16th, because all of Mars is turning into your eighth house. So it's making you have to maybe take action towards your investments, maybe take action towards because it's also ruling your 11th, towards your hopes and dreams. Maybe there could be some kind of unexpected like, just be careful with accidents, because the eighth house deals with accidents. And if you're reckless when you're driving, or if you do things that are reckless, you can struggle, or something can happen. So just be careful with accidents, be more vigilant. But Mars in the eighth house gives you a strong intuition, and it sort of like helps guide your actions through your intuition. So that's really good. But it'll stay there in your eighth house until the end of, I think on the 30th, it begins its retrograde motion, which will retrograde back into your seventh later on in November. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And now we're off to the next sign, which is Capricorn. I meant to say we're off to the sign of Sagittarius. Okay, so Sagittarius, you currently, first half of the month is going to be very career driven. There could have been some kind of miscommunication at work, or miscommunication in your everyday life that you had to at work, or in your relationships. Like, you guys really struggled with your relationships during this Mercury retrograde. Some of you could have even gone through a breakup. There was a lot of miscommunications about how you were perceived in your relationships, and not only like personal marriage, but could have also been like business relationships, business partnerships, your work, your career. There's a lot of miscommunications. There was a lot of issues that surfaced around this time. And sort of now on October 2nd, you will begin to make sense out of everything that happened and begin to take with you moving forward the lessons that you learned during the retrograde that now it's helping you see what you want to take with you and what you don't want to take with you as it pertains to your relationships and as it pertains to your career and how you're perceived by others and how you're perceived in your relationship. So then, and also right now, Venus is debilitated. It's in its least favorite position in your 10th house, affecting also your relationships. It's like things in your relationship are not, you're not seeing things in the way that you want them to, because Venus is all about love. It's all about compassion. It's about luxury. It's about the things that we love, the things that we want more of. And because it's debilitated, it's almost as if your logic is overpowering your happiness and your love. You're thinking too logically and you can't see things in the way that is helpful, because you're thinking more about the details and the logistics of things versus thinking about how things might really affect the relationship and how things might affect the love that is in the relationship or in your love life or in your career or with your business partners. Now, that's the first half. Now, once Mercury goes direct which will be tomorrow, once Mercury goes direct in this area, this is going to bring a sense of the debilitation is not going to feel as bad. So it's going to get better. It's going to feel like, because Mercury will be exalted in its own sign. So it's almost going to be like, okay, now I can think clearly. Now I can see things clearly, and I can also open my heart, and I can also love it within my career, within my business, within my relationships. So I'm going to take with me what I learned during the retrograde so those mistakes don't repeat itself. And I'm going to move forward with what I learned, and I'm going to, my love is going to become stronger, yet it's also going to be something that I am going to actively work on and actively reach for so that it can be aligned always. And this can be the case for you in your career and in your relationships, or in both. And so the first half of the month, you're really going to be more creative. You're going to be seen. You're going to think more logically. You're going to feel more beautiful. Especially within your relationships, you're going to feel more beautiful. You're going to feel more prone to fixing things. You're going to feel more prone to putting yourself out there and dating if that's what you wanted to do. Especially after the 16th, once Mars, is it the 13th? Oh, yeah, after the 16th, Mars has been in your 6th house for the past, it has been here for the past few months, and it's helping you. It has helped you sort of take action towards your everyday life. Some of you could have moved. Some of you could have changed your everyday life routine because now you're living in a different area, or you moved jobs, or you've been thinking about shifting jobs. A lot of your energy went towards your work and your everyday life and your routine and your health. Now, after the 16th, all of that energy, all of that passion that you had is going into your relationship. So this could be make it or break it. There's going to be a lot of passion, a lot of intensity in your relationships with others, whether it's business, whether it's romantic, marriage, etc. There's going to be a lot of passion. So use this time constructively, because the passion can turn into problems very fast. With Mercury, especially because it's going to be in Gemini, if you don't talk things through in your relationship, the relationship is going to fall apart. Like, especially for you guys, you need to chat, you need to talk, you need to communicate what's on your mind, what's on your heart, especially during this period, because if not, the relationship is not going to be able to sustain itself. There's a lot that will be left to the unknown, and when things are left to the unknown, they don't work out. Mars isn't like that. Mars wants you to take action. In the sign of Gemini, it wants you to take action towards communication. And if you don't do that, Mars will then have like an excess of energy pent up where it wants to discharge and is unable to discharge because it wants to discharge in a certain way and it's unable to. So then it leaks and then it discharges in the worst possible ways, through arguments, through fights, through using words that will damage the relationship, or of using communication that can be dangerous, that can be cutting, that can be very aggressive as well. So make sure that you are, especially in your career and especially in your relationships, after the 16th, you are being very patient and compassionate and communicating, because if you don't, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. If you're single, it's a good time to use your passion, this drive that you have in your career and in your relationships, to take action towards meeting somebody. It's a great time for that. Then the eclipses, the lovely eclipses, they are going to be happening. So at the first half of the month, all of this energy that you see right here, all of these planets, all of this stellium, so much energy, except for this one right here, is going to be here in your 10th house of career. So beginning of the month is all about you realigning with your career and realigning with your relationships. Second half is you using whatever you learned to implement it towards your hopes and wishes and manifestations. It's a great time to manifest. Don't manifest on the 25th though. Second half of the month, especially after the 18th, once Venus enters your 11th house, you're going to have power to make your dreams come true. South node there, K2, since December, has made you feel a sense of loss in your friendships. Like you could have been letting go of old friends that weren't serving you, or even letting go of relationships that weren't serving you. This is because since December, a karmic tunnel was opened that began its unleashing on around April, when the eclipses first happened. That has been unfolding throughout the month. And now on October 25th, there's going to be an opposition to that, and there's going to be an activation of this tunnel to then push you towards the remainder of this karmic 18-month cycle. So on the 25th, all of this energy is going to be in your friendships. Friends from like the past, friends from like high school that you don't feel are serving you could end, or relationships that are not serving you, that are not helping you make your dreams come true, are going to end, because right now you're making some kind of wish come true from childhood or from your past. You're working on this wish. You've been working on this wish since December, or even before, but since December, you took a lot of action towards it, and you've been working on this wish, and now you're going to have all this energy and all this drive to make it true. Don't take any rash decisions around the 25th. Let things unfold on their own, because then on the 9th, on the 25th, there will be a solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse there, with all of these other planets, with Sun, Venus, K2, and and Moon. Then on November 9th, we'll close off this cycle with the lunar eclipse in your 5th house of relationships. So the cycle will then close off within your relationship. So how you relate to your friends, how you create, and how you tap into your sense of creativity so that you can build your manifestation. Some of you have been investing and been doing really good at it. Just be careful around the 25th. You don't invest too much that you start to lose money, because luck has been on your side with North Node in the 5th house. It really loves being in this placement because it helps you manifest investments. It helps you manifest romance. It helps you manifest creativity. So if you work in creative fields, or if you wanted to take a leap of faith towards education in creative fields or education in general, it's a great time. Just don't make any decisions on the 25th, one day before, one day after, or on November 9th, one day before, one day after. Hold off, let things unfold on their own, because naturally they will. Then you've had Saturn in your 2nd house for the past 2 years, and it has been completely helping you restructure your finances and your family life and your sense of stability. Could have been like difficult. You could have been having a difficult time with that. Like you were trying to make ends meet, and you were trying to restructure your finances, but you felt stuck. You felt like nothing was coming together, like nothing has been making sense. Like your things are slower than usual. But Saturn is in its own sign of Capricorn. Saturn will not do damage in its own sign. It just wants you to be very disciplined, be very smart about how you spend your money, about how you take care of your finances and all of that. Become very smart, very vigilant with that. And Saturn, once it goes direct on the 22nd, will begin giving you the results of the last 2 years trickling down all the way until January of 2023, once it enters your third house. But until then, you are going to, after the 22nd, you're going to take everything that you learned the past 2 years in regards to your sense of stability, your sense of self, your sense of stability, sense of self, sense of structure and stability within your family life, all of that. You're going to bring it together. It's going to come together and give you the results. Maybe you were waiting for some kind of money to come to you, or some kind of answer around something that deals with your finances. You're going to get this answer, and it's going to go your way if you did the righteous thing, if you took the righteous path the last 2 years, if you were karmically aligned with the energies of Saturn, if you did the right thing, if you didn't I don't know, if you didn't do harm to others, if you were very disciplined and very structured in your family and in your finances, Saturn is going to reward you in the next 2 years. I mean, not in the next 2 years, sorry. And after the 22nd, all the way until January, once it leaves this area. Okay. Now, Jupiter is going, we have Neptune then. Oh, and also in your second house, you have Pluto there. And Pluto is currently the lowest degree planet in the sky for the most part. Some days we have other planets, but most days Pluto is the lowest degree, is at 2 degrees. So it's kind of like taking charge. It's making things happen. The lowest and the highest degree planets are always the event causing planets. So Saturn being the lowest degree has been making you have to transform your finances. Saturn sitting there with Pluto, both retrograde, have really made you have to, since July, reevaluate what you're doing wrong in your finances so that you can fix it and move forward after the 22nd, more aligned with what you're meant to do. Then Neptune is actually the highest degree planet in the sky. Neptune you can't see clearly. Neptune is very cloudy, and it's very mysterious, and it's very unclear. It doesn't give us clear answers. It doesn't give us, or it gives us answers, but not what we were expecting, because Neptune wants us to go for the spiritual route of it all. It wants us to take a route that aligns us with source, that aligns us with our purpose, not the route of expecting things to come to you, answers to come to you when you're not following your own compass, your own heart. So most importantly, I think Neptune just wants you to follow your heart and trust it, because you can't see it. It's like you have to trust it because you can't see it, and you won't see it. So if you try to see it, then you will get then things might not go the way that you expected or what you wanted, ultimately leaving you more confused and more hurt than before. So I want you to go blindly about things and just trust your gut and trust that it's not going to harm you in any way, kind of thing. Being in your third house, this can deal with your siblings. It's like you can't see them clearly, your business, your willpower. You don't know what route to take. You don't know what action to take. Can even deal with vehicles, driving. It's like you don't know what action to take. You don't know where to go. You feel a little bit lost. You feel a little bit dazed and confused. Just trust that what's meant for you is meant for you, especially as it pertains to like your business, as it pertains to your willpower, your hobbies, your everyday life, your how you communicate with others. Others can't understand you, and you can't understand others. So it's like a bi-directional, unclear miscommunication type of energy. And especially as it pertains to your finances. You can see your family, you can see your stability, you can see your sense of even worth very clearly, because Neptune is clouding you. But just find the spiritual route and you'll get the answers that you need, not what you wanted. You'll get what you needed. Okay, now Jupiter is going to remain retrograde in your fourth house. So it's expanding your sense of home, expanding your sense of happiness, but nothing's really going fast. Nothing's really changing because it's retrograde. So it's asking you to revisit something around your home life that you have missed, that you have let go of. And once you do this, then next month, I'll talk more about what it would look like for you. All right, now we're off to the next sign, which is Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn, rising and moon. Now it's your turn. Okay, so for Capricorn, you have had, oh, wait 1 second, sorry. So you have had a lot of planets in your, oh, wait, why isn't it showing me? Okay, I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know what's going on here. Here we go. So you have had quite a bit of planets in your ninth house. So you had Mercury retrograde in your ninth house. Tomorrow on the 2nd, Mercury will go direct. Venus is in debilitation in your ninth house. And Sun is there too, combusting Venus and Mercury. So what does this mean? So Mercury retrograde could have brought you a lot of unrest around your belief systems and around your job, your everyday life. There could have been something around your work life that was a little bit intense, or that you were learning something new and that hasn't really panned out the way that you wanted, or you could have been working on your health and there was some kind of miscommunication around that area, around your everyday life, your health, your work, or your belief systems, or something new that you've been learning. Now, once Mercury goes direct, the debilitation of Venus will not be as intense. So what this means is that Venus will now gain strength. So even though it's still going to be in its own debilitation sign of Virgo, and it's going to lose its beauty, because Venus is all about beauty, luxury, love, abundance, learning, and the things that we love. So when it's in the sign of Virgo, it's too logical. So it doesn't allow it to flow and to give you the beauty and the love that Venus wants to give you, because it's way too logical. But once Mercury goes direct, because Mercury is going to be exalted in its own sign of Virgo, that debilitation of Venus becomes less intense. And so you're able to reach for the things that you're meant to have, that Mercury and Venus are meant to give you, and Sun during this time. First half of the month, you're going to be focusing on some kind of new belief or some kind of new idea or some kind of teaching or new skill that you're learning that's going to really benefit you once all of these planets enter your 10th house. So what you're changing up your sense of work, you're changing up something at work is like bringing a lot of stress to you. So you're wanting to shift, or when you're wanting to do something different with your career or with your work life. Now, first half of the month is you trying to learn these things, trying to become more aligned with your beliefs, trying to communicate or better communicate your belief systems, and especially in your work environment. Because after the 16th, yeah, after the 16th, all of these planets that you see right here, oops, all of these planets will make a stellium here in your 10th house of career. So what does this mean? This big, big changes for you. Hold on. Okay, so around the month of April, but really since December, you have been feeling the sense of loss as it pertained to, why does it keep switching back? Hold on, I'm sorry, guys. Since December, you have been feeling a sense of loss around your career. You could have been feeling like what you're currently doing is not bringing you satisfaction. And so you could have began to change gears. You could have began to shift, because your home life is almost like asking so much of you that you're like, career is not so important right now. I need to focus on my home life. Some of you can be working from home. Some of you can have made a career from home, but it's almost as if home is requiring more of you than your career is still pulling you, but it's like you don't want to deal with it. You want to be at home and you want to work on the things that are happening for you at home. For the Saturn moon, you're going through your Sadhisati period. This is very difficult. So you're peaking, you have been peaking in your Sadhisati, which has begun 4 years ago. But the last 2 years, you were peaking in your Sadhisati. And then on top of that, you've had Ketu in your 10th house, removing you from your career because you're having to deal with all this emotional stress at home. For the Saturn rising, you have been completely shifting your entire life and having to rethink everything about your life, to rethink and restructure every area of life. Now, on the 25th, there will be an eclipse in your 10th house. This eclipse is going to begin the culmination of what began since December. So at this time, you're going to see some results in terms of, or you're going to feel more pulled towards your career, whether you want to or not. It's like your career is going to ask more and more of you. And you're not going to be able to focus so much on your home life and on your home environment because it's like your career is pulling you and asking so much of you. Around the eclipse, it could be like a turning point. On the 25th is the actual eclipse. Don't make any rash and harsh decisions on that day. Let things unfold naturally as they will. But if you decide to just take an action, just take a decision without really thinking it through for months since December, then this action might not be what you wanted ultimately. Versus if you just let it unfold, by November 9, you will have more clarity. And after November 9, things will just flow more easily and will take the karmic path that it's meant to take. So on October 25th, that's the first, it's going to be a solar eclipse in your 10th house. And then on November 9th, it'll be the lunar eclipse in your 4th house. So during the solar eclipse, a lot more attention is your work and your career and your outer image is asking you to be seen. Venus is going to be there on the 26th in your 10th house. Mercury is going to join in on the 18th, on the 26th. Mercury joins your 10th house on the 26th. Venus enters your 10th house on the 18th, Sun on the 17th. So slowly all the planets are leaving your 9th. So you've been learning something that then you're going to implement within your career. And this is going to ask more of you. You're going to get more responsibilities and you can be someone who gets like a higher status at work or in your career. You change paths and it's something that's more aligned with your truth and your intuition. And or be careful you don't do something rash and you lose your job. So just make sure you are aligning, you don't make any rash decisions around this time because it's like it's going to be asking so much more of you and it's going to piling up stress. But then on the 26th, once Venus joins your 10th house and leaves the debilitation zone, it's going to feel like, now I can see the beauty in all of this. And now it's a good time for me to take action towards this new career or this new career venture that I have been preparing for. And now I can finally take action because since December, you have been thinking and preparing for this. And now is the time when it's finally going to happen. Then Saturn for the last 2 years has been in your first house. So it's asked you to reevaluate and restructure every single area of your life. So at this time, it's been difficult. It hasn't been easy, but especially during July, something could have unfolded, or around the eclipse, July, early August, even June, something could have unfolded that made you realize, okay, something needs to shift in my relationships or something needs to shift within me that I need to align with, that it's going to help me in the future. And once Saturn goes direct on the 22nd, you're going to begin to feel more at ease and more like, okay, these things are finally trickling in. This hard work from the past 2 years is finally trickling in. I can finally see the light and it's coming towards my way and it's going to be for my benefit because Saturn is in its own sign. It's not going to do harm in its own sign. So you're in a good position. But Pluto's also there. So it's asking you to something you need to transform. You need to transform something before Saturn gives you these good karmas. And you have to make sure that you're always choosing the righteous path. Now, after January of 2023, for those of you who have a moon in Capricorn, you're finally going to begin to feel more at ease because moon is going to leave your peak Sadhisati area and it's going to enter the area where it's beginning to lessen all the Sadhisati effects. So it's once Saturn enters your second house, it's going to help you restructure your finances from all the restructuring that you did to your life the previous year. Now your finances are going to begin to align with this once Saturn enters your second house, and you're going to begin to feel more at ease as it pertains to your emotions and your stress level and your anxiety level. Jupiter is going to remain retrograde as it has been, so I won't speak too much on it. It's in your third house. You're thinking about creating a new business. You've been working more on your hobbies, but action won't come until once it goes retrograde, or if action does come, but it's very slow. Okay, off to the next sign, which is Aquarius. Okay, so Aquarius rising and moon. So congratulations, Mercury is officially out of retrograde, and it's sitting in your 8th house. So during the retrograde, there could have been some kind of difficulty in relationships. There could have been some kind of secrets, or just like a lot of misunderstandings in relationship that Mercury retrograde could have brought into your life. Now, when it comes to the month of October, the first half of the month, you will have a lot of planets in your 8th house. So all of this stellium right here, all of these planets in Virgo, they're all in your 8th house of transformation. So the first half of the month, you're sort of going through some kind of phase in your life where you're seeing things in a more spiritual sense. You have to be careful with accidents. You have to be careful driving. You have to be careful at home, the things that you speak, the words that you use, because it's almost as if Sun and Venus is also debilitating in the sign of Virgo, but since Mercury is officially direct, it's no longer the debilitation gets sort of a little bit canceled out because Mercury is in its exaltation point along with Venus. So Venus doesn't feel as trapped as it did when Mercury was retrograde, where it was too logical and you weren't able to see things the more esoteric side of life. You were just seeing things in a very logical way and not thinking things through not properly, but more in a eloquent and Venus type of way, because Mercury retrograde was making the Venus being already debilitated even more debilitated, or just stronger in a sense. So the first half of the month with Mercury and Venus and Sun in your 8th house, this could be a good time for like investments, or you can receive some kind of sudden money, sudden income that you weren't expecting, or if you were expecting to be paid for some kind of like insurance or some kind of money that you were waiting on. Now it's very possible for you to get it when you have all these planets in your 8th house, because it's bringing out a sense of transformation, sudden gains. Just be careful you don't invest too much of your money, because there could also be sudden losses, especially like if you like to gamble, or if you like to spend money like clubbing and things like that. This could be a little bit more difficult. Now the second half of the month gets better, because all of these planets enter your 9th house of hopes, wishes, good karma, of luck. So that's a really good thing. And give me 1 second. Okay, so all of the planets that were in your 8th house then enter your 9th house, where the eclipses will occur. So on the 25th of October, there's going to be a solar eclipse in your 9th house. And this will sort of be the completion of the eclipses that began back in the springtime, like around April. So the eclipses are destiny shaping karmic transits. So they steer our destiny towards a more aligned way of living. And so in April, you had the eclipses happening in your 3rd house. So there was something around your sense of expressing yourself, like how you express yourself, your communication, your willpower, your hobbies, a business even, that you could have thought about starting. And now, which something could have unfolded like around June, then in July, something else, beginning of August. Now, the other half, so this has been unfolding since December, but the events could have happened, could have increased in intensity around those months. Now, come the 25th of October, this will be kind of like the closing off, or the reopening of that tunnel, because the way that these eclipses, the way that I see them, are like a tunnel. in time, almost like a black hole where you go in and then you come out and it's like a whole different world. So it's like a black hole in time. It began in April, closed off, but the effects were still being felt. Now, come October 25th, it'll reopen, but instead of being in your third house, now it's reopening the other side, because we always need to balance the two. Two houses correspond to each other as an axis, they need to be balanced. So now all of this is happening in your house of hopes and wishes. On the 25th, there will be an eclipse, which will open up another tunnel that will close off on November 9th. Now, you could have started something, you could have started a new business, you could have found new ways of communicating your truth. You could have been more, especially in your home life or within your heart, or the way that you wanted to express your feelings, or the way that you maybe start a new hobby, start a new business, your willpower has shifted. Like you want to start something new, or you want to take action in a different way. That could have been the case. Now, come October 25th, you are almost like getting your hopes and wishes are aligning with what you wanted to do, because the ninth house deals with our spiritual side. So you're going to feel more spiritual, and the best way to feel or to view this intense energy is to view it in a very spiritual and higher power type of way. Because if we get too logical, then we miss the opportunity, because these karmic axis is very spiritual in essence. So being in the ninth house of spirituality, the ninth house of higher education, some of you can be thinking about learning something new, going back to school. Some of you may need to watch your father's health, or just really pay attention to give your father more importance, spend more time with your father, or try to mend the relationship that you have with your father so that your luck factor can activate. And if not your father, we all have a different journey in life. If your father's not around, or if you can't mend the relationship, then if you have some kind of spiritual teacher that can be a sort of guru to you, even if you're married, your husband, perhaps a teacher or a spiritual grounding force to devote to, especially during this the eclipse, it's really going to help you activate your luck factor and your higher power and your higher wishes, higher manifestations. There could be manifestations that are karmic in nature, that you've had your whole life, that you came into this earth to sort of fulfill, that now get activated and you are able to begin fulfilling them. Because the sun is going to pull you into your belief systems are going to be shaken up, and you're meant to view your life and your beliefs in a more spiritual sense. Mercury is going to join in the day after the eclipse on the 26th. So on the 25th, you'll have Sun, you'll have Venus, you'll have Ketu, and you'll have Moon there on your ninth house. So there's something about your belief systems that it's my cat. That's a further confirmation. There's something about your belief systems that you're having to rearrange and you're having to let go of in order to call into your life this new way of viewing the world, or this new way of relating to the world, this new hobby, this new way of communicating in the world, or even some kind of higher spiritual power, or some kind of higher spiritual, like maybe you wanted to travel and this is going to be a very spiritual trip, or maybe you wanted to go back to school, to a higher education. This will be a time when you can focus on manifesting that. If it's meant to be, it's going to happen. Just give it your intention and view it in a very spiritual sense. Your path sort of gets a little bit drifted at this time. Or for some of you, even marriage, because the ninth house is the activation of the marriage house. So, there's so many ways that this can go. Check where you have Venus in your chart to know a little bit more of how this eclipse will manifest for you. On the 25th, don't make any rash decisions, because we're not thinking logically. We're not thinking, our minds are being eclipsed by Rahu and Ketu's north and south node by the eclipse season. So just let things unfold as they should, because they will. Just allow them to unfold versus just making any rash decision that you didn't think through and you could regret later. So that is the energy for the eclipses for you. It's an intense time, and in November I'll talk about what the because this is going to be a solar eclipse, and on November 9th, it'll be a lunar eclipse. What that will just culminate to and bring together the two axes, because it's sort of like a puzzle that started in December, but really began to unfold in April, May. Now it one side of it, now the other side is beginning to get activated so that you can form a whole and have all the pieces together that will unfold in the next 6 months. For some, it'll unfold a lot faster. For others, just allow it to unfold on its own, as they should. And yeah, that is what's happening for you for the eclipse. Now let's look at Saturn. Saturn is going to go direct. Saturn has been retrograde in your 12th house for the past 2 years. Well, not retrograde for the past 2 years, but Saturn has been for the past 2 years in your 12th house. And for Aquarius moons, it has been a very difficult time. For risings, it's just been a time of a lot of healing and a lot of like having to maybe staying up late, thinking about all the things that you need to do in your life in order to feel more aligned, maybe feeling as if you're running out of time, as if time is short and this life is short. You could be feeling that way for a lot of Aquarius risings. Now, since July, Saturn went retrograde in your 12th house, which could have brought back fears from the past 2 years that you thought you had already healed, that you thought you had put to rest. Now, around July, something could have unfolded within your health, because Saturn there has made you have to come to conclusions in terms of your health, have to rearrange your health in some way, have to realign with what's meant for your life within your mental health, physical health, work, and inner peace. And so it hasn't been an easy transit. Saturn 12th house, it's difficult. It gives you a sense of not feeling at ease, not being able, thinking things too much, overthinking. It's not an easy placement, but especially for the Aquarius moons, because you began your Saraswati 2 years ago, which is 7 years of a lot of karma clearing. So it's been a very difficult period. Saturn in the 12th house. But after the 22nd, Saturn will go direct and it'll begin moving into your first house. And at this time, you can receive some calm. You can receive a sense of peace, a sense of completion, a sense of, okay, I went through all these 2 years and it was so difficult. And now I can begin to let go of that and begin to move forward and feel more at ease. Because Saturn, it restricts and it delays, but it doesn't deny. So it's going to give you the peace of mind that you needed at the end of the day as it begins to move forward into your first house. It'll officially be in your first house come January of 2023. I'm going to do another video on Saturn for all the signs. But for Aquarius moons, it's almost as if you're feeling like this intensity. This does not apply for the risings. This only applies for the moon signs. It's almost as if the last 2 years you have been feeling this intensity, like this uneasy feeling that almost like a pressure cooker, something's happening, you need to let go and change some ways of yourself, of how you navigate the world around you, of your own inner self. You need to make big changes. That's how you have been feeling within yourself the last 2 years. And now it's almost as if you're seeing things clearer and you're seeing how you can finally make those changes that you have been staying up at night thinking about for so long. Now you're going to begin to see the path on how to take action towards those changes. That's how it might come off for you. Maybe your health, maybe you get some kind of revelation around your health, maybe you feel better mentally. It's good. Saturn being in its own sign, it's not going to do damage, but for the moon signs, it's still going to be difficult. For the moon signs, it's almost as if you're feeling that Saturn is approaching you, and it's approaching you, getting closer, and now come January of 2023, it's going to be right on your moon, and this is when your Saraswati will begin to peak, and you will make a lot of changes, you will let go of a lot of things, but you have to remain grounded, because if you don't remain grounded, if you don't have a grounding source, then things can blow up out of proportion and get out of hand, because Saturn is going to restrict you. Saturn is going to ask of you a lot of discipline, and it's going to feel very uneasy. It's going to feel like you're drowning, like you can't breathe, like you can't crawl out. It's not going to be an easy time if you're not grounded and if you don't have a grounding source. And by grounding source, it can look that can look differently for everyone. That looks differently, but just something that you can hold on to, a vision that you can hold on to, that you know that it's there, that it's not moving, the thing that is the most stable in your life that you can hold on to, that you know that if everything else breaks apart, you have that thing to hold on to. That could be a sort of like grounding source for you. It's very important for you to find one at this time. Now, so yeah, it won't, once Saturn goes direct, it's going to feel a little bit better. But next year, and I'll talk about it in January or maybe I'll do a Saraswati video separate. Let me write that down. Yeah, that's a good idea to do a Saraswati video for like, for the Capricorns, the Aquarius, and the Pisces. And this only applies for the moon signs, by the way. But Jupiter will remain retrograde in your second house, so not much is going to change around that. So I'm not even going to talk about it. Mars is leaving your fourth house on the 13th. So it's been there for the past like 2 months, I think, or yeah, almost 2 months. And Mars here in your fourth house has brought you a lot of, has made you feel like you need to take a lot of action within your home life, within your happiness, even maybe bickering at home or bickering with your mom, lots of passion in your home life. But at the same time, that passion, if you weren't able to redirect it in a positive way, like maybe some of you could have moved and could have had the drive to make those moves, or the drive to be able to take action towards those moves, or even just move in general. Maybe some of you moved. That's a good way to take action, especially the people that work in real estate. This was a great time for you. Otherwise, there could have been a lot of bickering at home, a lot of just arguments. Now, Mars left that area, but it'll be back starting. Mars entered your fifth house, where you're going to feel all this passion being directed towards your sense of love, or even romance, or even relationships. So all of this, you're going to want to chat more with your partner, you're going to want to have those important conversations with your partner. So this will be a time of a lot of action in your relationships. And on the 30th, Mars goes retrograde, and it'll make its way back into your fourth house sometime in November, and I'll talk about that in the November reading. But otherwise, this is it for Aquarius. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Pisces. Pisces rising and moons. Okay, so Mercury is officially direct, so that's really good, because Mercury was retrograde in your seventh and fourth house. So there could have been some kind of difficulty or misunderstandings, or just a sense of loss as it pertains to your marriage, your relationships, and your home life, your inner happiness. Now, Mercury is officially direct, and Venus is there with Mercury. So during the retrograde, it could have felt as if you were thinking very logically, because Venus was in its debilitation point in your seventh house of relationships. So being in its debilitation point, it does not feel comfortable in the sign of Virgo at all, meaning that the significations of Venus, which is love, passion, it is beauty, and vulnerability, and expressing our inner emotions. Those are all the significations for Venus. So being in its debilitation sign, it almost like loses that. It becomes too logical, and it becomes too robotic almost. And which is very difficult in a relationship, because that's not how relationships work. So now that Mercury is direct, it lessens those difficulty of Venus being in its debilitation, because Mercury is in its exaltation point in the sign of Virgo in your seventh house. So that's really good. That means that now Venus is gaining strength, Sun is there illuminating, and Mercury is helping you think through things properly. So in the seventh house, it's the house of marriage, it's the house of relationships, business partnerships. You could now be feeling as if the retrograde happened, I went through XYZ, I had to revisit certain areas of my life. Now I'm bringing this with me moving forward, what I learned from it. Now, all the way until the second half of the month, like around the 16th, the first half for you, it's all about business, relationship, marriage, home life, and your inner happiness. So that's what the first half of the month carries for you. It's a good time after, once Mercury went direct today, exactly. And now it begins to your seventh house begins to gain strength. So it's not a bad time. A lot of, maybe your partner might need more from you. Maybe you need more from your partner. Maybe you're feeling more relationship driven, relationship oriented. Maybe you're feeling, or your partner could be feeling more relationship oriented, more driven, wanting to have logical conversations, wanting to spend more time with you. Just a lot of your focus is in your relationships right now, and making your relationships work, and illuminating that area of your life. Or even just like your business partnerships, your business partner can need more from you at this time, or you can, or maybe you get into a new business partnership, maybe you get into a new relationship, maybe some of you get married. It could go either way, but a lot of energy is in that area within your home life and in your relationships. Now, the second half of the month, after the 16th, let me make sure. Yeah. After the 18th, all of these planets are going to enter your 8th house. Give me 1 second. Where all the energy that was concentrated in your relationships is now moving into your 8th house, where the eclipse will unfold on the 25th. So the first half of the month, you were focusing on your partnerships, you were focusing on your relationships, on your marriage. And now, second half of the month, everything is shifting more towards a sense of transformation, a sense of letting go, a sense of, this is not an easy placement for the eclipses to happen in the 8th house, because the 8th house is such a sensitive house. It is a house of losses. It is a house of sudden losses, sudden gains. It's a house of transformation. It's the house of dark secrets, deep secrets, things that are of other realms, occult knowledge, things like that. So the eclipse is happening in your 8th house, is asking you to visit and to transform an area of your life that deals with your sense of stability, that deals with, you have to check where Venus is in your chart to get a better idea, but this could have begun in December. And then during the eclipses around April, May, it activated this area of your life even more. And then June, July, August, events could have unfolded in your life that began to take shape as it pertained to this area of your life, which is your sense of security, your sense of family, your sense of stability, and then some sort of transformation. So the first half, which was springtime, summertime, it was all about your inner stability, your family, your finances. So something about that, you were being asked to completely change, or to view it in a different way, or to find a new outlet of transmitting it, of manifesting it. So you just you had to be careful with like your eating habits, because second house does deal with like your lungs, or like your throat, your speech. It also deals with eating. So maybe some of you could have transformed the way that you spoke to others, the way that you viewed yourself, but then your own sense of stability within your own sense of finances. And this could have happened very rapidly, like an event could have taken shape that made you have to completely change your stability or change your finances, and it was very sudden, and it could have shaken you up because it happened so suddenly. And again, this is a karmic axis, so this is a destiny shaping axis. So whatever happens in this area of your life, it's destiny shaping in some way or another. So something could have happened around this time that now the other side would, because this is an axis, right? The first half was happening in your finance and in your speech and in your sense of stability sector, or even your family. Now the second half is happening within your own self, and a need for a transformation to unfold. So this transformation will be closely tied to your sense of stability. So there's so much pressure. It almost feels like a pressure cooker, where pressure is sort of like increasing and asking of you to make some kind of change in your life. You could have begun investing, and investments could have gone very well. You just have to be careful there's no sudden losses within that. But once the sun enters your 8th house, which would be on the 17th, it's really illuminating your sense of transformation. There's something that you need to let go of in order to finish off this Rahu Ketu transit, transformed in the areas of your family life, of your finances, of your sense of stability, and in the areas of your own hidden self. So it's not an easy transit, but it is one of the more transformative transits. Because 8th house, you never leave this area without changing something. You never leave, and whether it happens because it forces you, because it'll always happen, but it'll happen either at your own will, because you recognize the areas of your life that you need to change, and therefore you make those changes, or it'll happen against your will, and it'll happen forcefully, but it'll always happen. So you can either have the awareness to do it on your own, or it'll happen either way, but it won't be what you wanted, sort of thing, if that makes sense. But it is a very transformative axis, and it's not an easy one at all. So you could be feeling a sense of loss, a sense of uneasiness around your stability and around your own inner self. Ultimately, it's not going to be a negative. Ultimately, it won't be negative, but it will require changes from you to make, especially once Venus enters its own sign, which will happen on the 18th, preparing for the eclipse. It's like mounting energies mounting. You're feeling more pulled towards a transformation. You're feeling more called to take action, yet you're feeling like, okay, there's a sense of loss here too, where I need to let go of myself in order to transform, or there's a sense of loss within myself, or within something that I need to let go of in order to transform. Because K2 being there is a spiritual point, so it always wants you to find the spiritual avenue to this change or to this transformation. So that will happen on the 25th. That'll be, just don't take any harsh actions on the 25th, because it's activating on the 20th, like one day before, one day after the 25th. Try not to take too many harsh actions. Just let it unfold on its own as time goes on, but become aware of the actions that you do need to take. And then it'll close off on November 9th, but I'll talk about that during the lunar eclipse on November 9th, but I'll talk about that in the November video. And I'm also going to do a video on just the eclipses, and I'll talk about that there too. Okay, now Saturn has been retrograde in your 11th house of hopes and wishes, manifestations, social networks, institutions, etc. And Pluto has been there too. Pluto is currently the lowest degree planet in the sky, so it's sort of like commanding a lot of transformation out of us. For you, it's sitting with Saturn, and it's in the 11th house, so it's like your hopes and wishes are requiring you to transform in a way, but this transformation feels almost hard to it feels difficult, because Saturn is almost like holding it back, and it's almost like holding you back, and it's almost like making you feel a sense of loss as it pertains to like your friendships, your social network, your manifestations, your gains. So it's like, you know that it's possible, or that that there's some sort of transformation, hard work, but at the same time, you feel pushed back. Now, after the 22nd, you're going to feel, because both Pluto and Saturn will go direct, so you're going to feel more of a sense of moving forward, and more of a sense of, okay, this is what I learned for the past 2 years, especially since July unfolding until now. You were revisiting something around that area, so this is something I learned. Now this is what I'm going to take with me moving forward, because Saturn will delay, it will restrict, but it'll give you the results after hard work. And in the 11th house, Saturn there is not a bad placement. It's just delaying your hopes and wishes. It's delaying your manifestations, because it wants you to do the righteous thing, and it wants you to work hard, and then it gives you the results. But it's in its own sign. Saturn will never damage its own sign. in the house it sits in. So ultimately, once it goes direct on the 22nd, things are moving forward. The transformation is taking hold, and you're going towards your hopes and wishes all the way until January of 2023, once Saturn enters your 12th house. Now, this is not going to be an easy placement. Neptune, and I'll tell you why in a minute, especially for Pisces moons. But Neptune currently is the highest degree in the sky, and it's sitting in your 12th house. So there's something about yourself that you can't see clearly. There's something about your intentions that others don't see clearly. There's something that you don't see clearly. There's something that some kind of, because Neptune just clouds, it adds like a sense of illusion, a sense of delusion, because it wants you to find the more spiritual way of viewing things, because it never will let you see things clearly. It just wants you to find a spiritual way of viewing it instead. So Neptune is clouding you. It's almost like clouding your thoughts, is clouding your inner self, and it won't let you see your path or see your feelings clearly. If you feel confusion within yourself, try to find the meaning behind it, and as it pertains to a spiritual way, in a spiritual sense, because and Neptune will be the highest degree for some time. Once Saturn January of 2023, once Saturn enters your 12th house, you're going to begin for Pisces moon, not Pisces rising. So you're going to begin your Saraswati period, which is essentially 7 years of a lot of hard work, a lot of karma clearing. But I won't even talk about it in this video. I'll save it for a video that deals with the Saraswati. I'm going to make one of those. 1 second. Okay, and then things will begin to move forward for you as it pertains to your hopes and wishes, manifestations after the 22nd. Now, Jupiter will remain retrograde in your first house, and it's also the ruler of Neptune. Neptune rules over Jupiter. So it will remain retrograde in your first house. And I've talked about Jupiter retrograde in your first house in other videos, so I won't get into it in this video because it's going to remain retrograde until November. November, I'll talk about the effects going direct. But until then, Jupiter retrograde in your first house, it's not giving you the expansion and the rate that it would have if it was direct. So Jupiter in its own sign, in its own house, in your first house, is great. It's such a blessing because it's protecting you. But being retrograde is sort of like delaying it, and it's not giving you the protection in a way where it's forward moving. It's almost like it's pulling you back, like you're having to revisit, you're having to change things, and you're having to really find out what it is that you need to change, or what it is that you need to do, or what it is that you want in order to move forward once Jupiter goes direct. Now, it's ruling your 12th house, where you have Neptune is being ruled by Pisces. Neptune is ruled by Pisces, and Neptune is in your 12th house. So in some way, even though Neptune is unclear, because you have Jupiter because you have Jupiter in your rising in its own sign of Pisces, that Neptune is not going to do harm to you. You just need to find the more spiritual way of viewing things, and then you get the result that you wanted. And that's it for Pisces rising. I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh wait, no, just kidding. You have so you've had Mars in your 3rd house, and after the 13th, after the 16th, Mars will enter your 4th house, where before you were taking action in your communication, you were able to express and communicate your feelings. You were able to, your willpower was also at an all-time high. You were taking a lot of action. You were taking a lot of passionate action. You were taking you had a strong drive. Now Mars is entering your 4th house of home, and all of this passion, all of this drive, all of this action is going to your home life. So just be careful with like bickering at home, with like arguments with your mother, arguments at home, because Mars in the 4th house, it's not a bad placement. It's just too much action. If you were trying to move, it's good for that. If you worked in real estate, it's good for that. But otherwise, it almost feels like you can bicker at home. It can be a little bit intense. It can be a little bit too passionate if you don't find an outlet to communicate, because in the sign of Gemini, it wants to communicate things. Instead, if you use it as a way to like argue, it'll also leak and push you towards arguing. So make sure you're utilizing it. You're utilizing this Mars energy in a more constructive way. And on the 30th of October, this Mars will go retrograde and it'll begin its transit back into your third house, but that won't happen until November, so I'll save it for then. And yeah, that's it for Pisces rising and moons. And I hope you enjoyed this reading. And yeah, I'm gonna make another video on the eclipses and on the Saraswati period for all the rising and moon signs. All right, bye.